And welcome into the Tuesday edition of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. We have got a loaded show for you here today. Lots to come on the Nashville Predators. We'll be joined at 8 o'clock by Trey Wallace from Rocky Top Insider, getting to the latest with the Tennessee Volunteers with him. Chris Mason, Preds TV analyst, drops by at 8:30. Our man Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports at 9 o'clock. To get into the latest on all things NFL, get into the Deshaun Watson situation a little bit as well, coming up at 9 o'clock. And as always, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Joe Rexrode, how we doing? What's going on?
I'm fine as long as I can get some of those shirts, man.
Yeah, we'll have to get you some shirts.
I hope everybody has seen. In fact, I need to retweet this.
We'll tweet it out here in a little bit.
Yes, it is.
I kind of teased it yesterday with Darren that people should stay tuned if you're a fan of the vibing the Predators have been doing and that Joe Hansen has created, that maybe there'd be a T-shirt coming down the pike, and there was. We're vibing,
Robby.
It's out there, baby. The T-shirt has been released. It's at Journey Risk True. You can find it. I've tweeted it out. We'll tweet it out a little bit later. Porth has hung up a nice rally towel from the game last night. We're vibing.
Vingan
here
wants
on the studio that we're watching.
Wants to strangle everyone.
He does. He was legitimately upset.
Now, I will I get these things get battered to death. They do.
Sure.
This is. But the T-shirt, I mean,
it's pretty amazing.
It's pretty awesome. Like, did you sit for someone? Did you? Was there like an artist rendering? Did you sit there?
No, I wish
someone painted your face. Like,
no, I basically just sent in a photo. I would have loved to have
sent in a
there.
photo.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they kind of worked their magic with it. There were a couple different drafts of it, and we got it figured out, and that's what we came out with last night.
Like, you look to me like one of the elders from Braveheart.
I'll take it.
You look kind of tough, you know?
I know. I'll take it.
You look kind of tough. You look tougher than, our buddy Kenston, man. I love you, Kenston. We were at the game last night, and so Stillman and Caroline and I took a picture.
Yeah.
And Kenston's like, "Oh, Jared is jacked, muscle bound." Like, what?
He's been working out, man.
Kenston watches all of Jared's Instagram workouts.
I guess. Yeah. I guess so.
Off.
I'm like, Kenston, man, the Titans have no needs in the draft, and Jared is jacked. So, but we still love you, Kenston.
Hey, it works out, man.
And I'm gonna buy you a We're Vibing Robby shirt too.
You should. I'm selling those right now. It's working out pretty well.
I mean, I'm getting one for everyone in the family.
You like the way it turned out?
I love it.
That's good.
I want some more of it.
People were trying to figure out like exactly who I look like. Like I had people reach out to me and say, you kind of look like Chris Mason on the shirt, which I get. I mean, bald, bearded.
Yeah,
it's a good
beautiful
combo. Beautiful. Yeah, it's good. We'll talk to him about it a little bit later today on the show, but check it out at Journey Risk True on Twitter. We're vibing Robby. The T-shirts are for sale.
We're vibing Robby,
and we're gonna have fun with it. Preds were vibing again last night. Rexrode, a 5-2 win against the Chicago Blackhawks. They improve to 6-0 against the Blackhawks this year. You were at the game. What'd you think of the Predators last night?
Yeah, they were good. You obviously get those two quick ones to start the third, and you basically end it. But I thought they were good. I think that fourth line continues to be a really important part of this team. And, of course, Jeannot scores again. You cannot take him out of the lineup. I'm sorry. He's in, man. He's in.
It's tough to argue with you right now, I'll be honest with you.
I just, like, if, obviously Duchesne, and we're going to talk more about Duchesne in the show, but that was big for him to get a piece of that puck and get it in. But Granlund, to me, is, and so Brennan, my 13-year-old, was with me, and many times I said, "No, see, watch Granlund on this play. Watch him over here. Watch him over there. Just all over the ice.
Yeah.
Makes key, smart little plays, and creates a lot. That to me, he's the guy who stood out.
Yeah, he stood out to me too. He played really well and did not score.
Yeah.
And Calle Jarnkrok finds his way on the board last night. Unbelievably, Ryan Porth now up to 3 in this competition.
Pulling away.
Duchesne finds his way on the board last night, so you're up to 7. Arvidsson hit one off the post on a breakaway, so the listeners remain at 7. So now the standings are 7 for the listeners, 7 for Rexrode, 3 for Ryan Porth, and 1 remaining for Robbie Stanley. In Predators Pick to Click.
You'll
Brought to you by
always
New
have that
Amsterdam
Tolman
Vodka.
in goal.
I will.
Hey, listen, again, your guy, I think, was the best player.
Thank you. That
Preds.
makes me feel
So,
really good.
I mean, at least you have that. You picked a guy who played very well.
He played 23 minutes and 27 seconds in a game they won by 3 goals. He was out there for 23 minutes as a forward and did not score. 2 assists, though.
Yeah, 2 points. 2 points.
Yeah, played.
So-
Played really well.
You're not salty or anything, are you?
I wouldn't have been salty if Yarncroke didn't score. But when you have a 2-goal lead on me now, it's basically insurmountable at this point.
I would have been salty, finally giving up Yarncroke if Duchesne didn't score too. You know what I mean?
Oh, I'm sure you would.
Sure. So I expect some gratitude tomorrow on the show when we have Matt Duchesne on for our weekly visit. Yes. I have a feeling that there's a little causation here.
It could be. That's the second time that you've done this.
That's
with
right.
Duchesne. His first of the season and his first since coming back from injury.
How many goals does he have?
I think that was his 5th.
4th.
That was his 4th.
So
half the
I'm
goals.
responsible for 50% of his goals.
There you go.
Pick him again Wednesday. He'll score.
There you go. Maybe
might
this is
have
the
to.
formula for Joe Rexrode moving forward.
I don't know,
you
man.
did Yarncroke for, 7 games in a row. Maybe now it's Duchesne.
Or Joe Shane.
Or, Joe Shane.
I may not be able to resist Yarncroke again. I don't know, man.
He's
It doesn't feel right to not go with
Ryan
Yarncroke.
Yarnpork, irresistible here on the program.
Someone said Yarn Porch. Someone said Yarn Porth. A lot of combos.
When he's out there making plays, it's yarn porn.
Could be. Absolutely could be. Another good game for Callie Yarncroke last night against the Chicago Blackhawks. UC Saros last night, Joe. Fantastic once again. Didn't have to be great in the game, but made some key saves at key times. Like Dylan Strome right now has got to be just sick every time he sees UC Saros in the net. I mean, it was the last time they're at home. He had like 7 chances against Saros. Couldn't get any of them to go. He had another couple of good looks last night and just nothing. Saros giving him nothing right now.
Yeah, he was really good. I don't know that there were a ton of outrageous saves, but a lot of good ones.
Yep.
A lot of good ones. And that first goal is always important. The Blackhawks, DeBrincat, I think, tied it right in the power play.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's a really good power play. That's a really tough power play. But they kept answering them, and they just seemed to have like this confidence. I mean, 6-0, pretty amazing. And it just like there's no way they're gonna go 8-0, right? Right?
I don't know, man. This is the second time in the history of the franchise that they've beaten Chicago 6 times in a year. They were, I believe, 6-2 against Chicago in 05-06. Not the same star power in Chicago.
Yeah,
during that time.
that was back when the Wolves got more attendance in Chicago. Big hockey town Chicago.
Yes.
God, don't even get me started on those people.
A lot of bandwagoners.
Oh, jeez. Like as soon as they started getting good. That's
why I say, like,
look at my Chelios jersey.
In normal times when there are at least some Blackhawks fans in the building, I do kind of a look around to see, all right, who's real here? You've got a lot of Kane jerseys. I understand it. Tays, Duncan Keith, that's all fine. But when I see a Tony Amonte jersey walking around, like, you've been through some things. You are real.
You're a real one. You're a real one.
Eric Daze.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Little Eric Daze jersey. Yes. Don't see a whole lot of those, though.
No.
It's amazing.
They actually had a few people in the building last night.
Yeah, what was it like being in there? I was covering the game from home last night. The capacity raised to 33%. What was it like being in there? What was the vibe like?
I mean, Bridgestone Arena was vibing last night.
Yeah, it was.
It was vibing.
It was
it seriously, like, it on the broadcast, and sometimes, when they were chanting at the ref or after the goals were scored, it didn't feel normal, but for the first time, or one of the few times this year, I noticed, like, oh, that crowd's really going. Like, that was, I think the capacity made a difference last night. Increase.
And don't underestimate that it was 90s night. So, I
That's true.
I didn't even realize that until, and for the most part, that was good. Rubik's Groove played
Yes.
between periods, both periods. I mean, I've paid to see Rubik's Groove at 2 different bars. I'd like you to know. So I was pretty excited when I
saw
went
him for free.
Wait, it's Rubik's Groove because like one of their singers dresses up like Pee Wee Herman.
Oh, good.
But so they have an 80s show and a 90s show.
Large Marge?
What's that?
No Large Marge out there from Pee Wee Herman?
Large Marge? I don't remember Large
I'll
Marge.
show you.
Is that on the show or the movie?
That's the movie.
Right?
She's a truck driver.
Oh, yeah. Golly. Well, it's been a long time. But they have an 80s show and a 90s show. I think the 80s show is better, but the 90s show is very good. However, I forgot they play Blink-182.
Oh,
And they did last night.
They did an accurate rendition of it because any garage band could learn it in 5 minutes, but they did fine.
They also played My Own Worst Enemy by Lit.
Yeah. Which sounds just like Blink-182. Yeah. But there was a lot of good 90s jams.
Joe was vibing.
I mean, they were rocking out some Soundgarden. Like, that was – and a little Right Said Fred. They were all over the map. It was good. Also, the Sega Hockey, that was cool. So, Sega Hockey on the screen, and then they had it updated, like with the Preds and the current Blackhawks. So, I'm telling Brennan about how, I used to just dominate that game with Jaromir Jagr. Long time ago.
Does he know who Jaromir Jagr is?
Yeah, I mean, he's –
okay. Look.
I mean, I've told him about Jaromir Jagr because he's always like, who's the best hockey player ever? Who's the best basketball player ever? Stuff like that.
Do you say Jaromir Jagr on the best hockey player ever?
No, but
he's up there.
I say, the Penguins have had some generational players. You go Lemieux, Jagr,
Crosby, Malkin.
Now Crosby, yeah.
Not a bad run for the Pens. Not a good run for the Blackhawks against the Predators so far this year.
Great tweet by Ryan Porth. 17-22. Is that what it is?
Oh.
They've won 17-22 against Chicago, dating back to
the first round in 2017.
That's what you call dominance, my friend. And speaking of that, are the Predators now full-time owners of the Chicago Blackhawks? We'll get into that coming up. 2 more massive games for the Predators against Chicago coming up this week. Could they finish this off? Could they go undefeated against Chicago this year? We'll discuss that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game.
We're vibing, Robby. Vibing, 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 vibe, 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 vibe. We're vibing, Robby.
Oh, yeah, the vibe continues last night for the Nashville Predators. A 5-2 win against the Chicago Blackhawks. They improved to 6-0 against Chicago so far this year. The second time in franchise history that they've beaten Chicago at least 6 times in a season. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Tuesday morning and streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. So, Joe, obviously, it's been a dominant stretch for the Predators against Chicago. As Porth has pointed out, winners of 17 of their last 22 matchups against the Blackhawks. So this is quite the run of success against a team that earlier last decade was terrorizing you left and right and terrorizing the rest of the National Hockey League as well. So the Predators have gotten some payback here against the Chicago Blackhawks. 2 more huge matchups against Chicago coming up later this week. The question now is, can the Predators finish this thing off? Could they go for the sweep against Chicago? Now, to the Blackhawks' credit, I thought the Predators a couple of times last night in the first 2 periods were on the verge of maybe blowing that thing open and pulling out. Like the first period, I thought the first 10 minutes of the first period, the Blackhawks were just holding on for dear life. And then you get the power play and DeBrincat scores and you make a game of it. Then Predators get up 3-1. The Blackhawks respond and make it 3-2. So I thought they did a good job of holding on until the third period when the Predators came out and popped 2 on them in 41 seconds, and it was 5-2. Game was over at that point. Now that we've seen it, there's 6 games worth of sample size now this year, 2 more remaining. Can the Predators pull this off, Joe Rexrode? Can they sweep the Blackhawks and go 8-0 against them this year?
They can, but I'll still be surprised. The Blackhawks, they're playing for a lot. They've got these 2 games at home. How much does that mean? I don't know, but it's got to be a little better than being here, right?
Yeah.
Sure. if you beat a team 6 times, how could you say you couldn't do it 2 more? There's a little bit of law of averages in there, and just a little bit of. The Blackhawks' entire season is on at least winning 1. If you lose both, it's basically we're going to just be talking about the Preds and Dallas, and Dallas, which just gets a whole bunch of Detroit right now.
And by the way, Dallas passing Chicago last night in the standings. So the Predators get it done in regulation. Dallas still 3 points behind the Predators. They get a shootout win against Detroit. So Chicago at this moment no longer in 5th. They are in 6th place in the Central Division as well. So to your point, Dallas has 3 more games coming up this week against the Red Wings. They almost got them last night. It's 2-2 heading into overtime. And Dallas has been awful in overtime / the shootout. I think last night was the 3rd game that they've won all year in overtime or a shootout, and they've been there 14 times.
I was about to say, they play half their games in extra time.
Yeah. So the Red Wings with a good effort last night. The question is, can you get something similar in one of these next 3 games? I don't expect the Red Wings to win 2 of them. Could they get 1 of them in regulation? That would help you a lot.
Yep.
If you're the Predators.
If the Red Wings can give you help on 1 time, then that's all you can reasonably ask. Dallas does have 3 with Tampa Bay, 2 with Carolina, 1 with Florida ahead, and those 3 teams are all. How important is it for any of those 3 to get the 1? I would say it's pretty important. You'd rather play, right? You'd rather play either of those teams or any of those 3 rather than play one of the top teams. So that's good news. If you're a Preds fan, is the fact that Dallas is going to be playing, and of course the Preds finished with Carolina, so they're not out of that either. But the fact that those teams should be engaged and wanting to win, and you got some tough ones ahead. But I agree, you get 1 game from the Red Wings, that would help you. And that's amazing. To your point, Dallas 12 overtime losses. No one else in the league has more than 7. No, I guess Montreal has 9, but other than that is a big number.
They've been brutal.
Think about how many
overtime.
Think about what position it could be in. Just split that.
Yeah.
But Chicago, if Chicago loses the next 2, they can basically just pack it up. And I got to think there's going to be as much desperation as you could muster from a team in these 2 games.
I think you're right. the question I have is it going to matter? Like, they just have a tough time scoring against this Predator team. And look, I get it. They've got Kane and DeBrincat, so you can never just assume that they're not going to score because those two guys are incredible, particularly, obviously, Patrick Kane, who is maybe the best U.S.-born player of all time. So, I mean, they are really, really good. He is dangerous, so you can't just rest on that if you're the Predators. But this is a pretty big sample size this season where Chicago's just had a tough time scoring against the Predators. The goalies have been great. Defensively, the Predators have shut them down. And Ekholm talked about this a little bit yesterday in the pregame press conference. And he said, some teams you just match up better against. And then he kind of caught himself in the middle of it and was like, I'll leave it for people to decide if that's Chicago or not. But, I mean, they've won 6 in a row. I think with the way
I could be talking about anybody right now.
I could be talking about anybody right now. It was pretty funny the way that transpired. But it makes sense. Like, we've talked so much about the forecheck the Predators have had and how relentless they've been and how, difficult that's been for other teams to manage. Well, it's really difficult on other teams and their defensemen. And quite frankly, Chicago's defensemen suck. Like, they are not good. Duncan Keith's had a great career.
Yeah.
He's not the same anymore. And they just don't have a lot of good players back there. Connor Murphy he's okay. But right now, Connor Murphy's like their number one defenseman. And that is a problem. So I think the Predators have really been relentless on the forecheck against Chicago. And that has given their defensemen a lot of issues. And I don't see, as long as the Predators continue to play that way, I don't see that issue changing in these next couple of matchups. Now, maybe if you're the Blackhawks, you can overcome that. But I do think the Predators and the way that they've played, that style in particular is very effective when you have a group of defensemen that are not as gifted moving the puck like Chicago.
Yeah, and Chicago's going to need a goaltender to step up too,
yep.
and win a game for them or keep them in a game. I mean, I think I don't know how many of those goals would be totally on the goaltender, but you got to stop more of them than Lankinen did. So, I mean, that's a big part of this too.
I feel like Lankinen has been really good against 6 other teams this year,
yeah.
And then when he's faced the Preds have owned him.
Which is weird.
I would agree. I would say it's probably I was kind of surprised they didn't do it last night. I'd say it's likely they go with Subban on Wednesday. I mean, Subban, he shut out the Red Wings on Saturday. So I was kind of surprised they didn't go with him yesterday. I would say it's pretty likely he's in there Wednesday. Not going to make any goaltending changes if you're the Predators, more than likely, though. Probably sticking with what you got right now.
I would say so. Yeah, there's a lot just – and he's – I think in person it's easier to catch this, like what Hal Gill was talking about. There are some because he's so quick to react and anticipate things, he makes some saves that really look very routine that aren't actually. And other goaltenders might be more dramatic about them, but he is locked in.
He's locked in, and he was locked in again last night. But, I mean, to their credit, they spent a lot of time holding on the puck last night. And I get it. I mean, it's a totally different matchup than Carolina. And by the way, like if you missed the Carolina-Tampa Bay game last night, I had that on another screen. You talk about some high-level hockey. Last night, Carolina and Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay gets it done in overtime. Their rematch is tonight. So looking forward to that one coming up tonight between Tampa Bay and Carolina. But it's just a totally different matchup. The Predators held on to the puck a little bit more. I mean, the goal Ekholm scored to go up 3-1, you're talking about like a little chip out of the zone from Johansson. And Ekholm's kind of streaking down the wing there. He looked like a left winger. He just ripped it. I mean, it's great play by a defenseman. I mean, it's great play by anybody. But then you factor in it's a defenseman and his name's not Roman Josi. He looked pretty smooth out there.
He did look fast.
He did.
Yeah. No, it looked like a clearly better team against a clearly inferior team.
And it was interesting because Jeremy Colleton, coach of the Blackhawks, last night in his post-game press conference was talking about how they played pretty well. He thought the Blackhawks played well and had a chance right there at the end. And, a couple of calls. He was mad about Connor Murphy getting his helmet knocked off on the 4th goal scored by the Predators. So it's all about perspective with this. That's the way he's going to feel. He knows he's got 2 more matchups against the Predators. I've heard some people say Chicago's been right there against Nashville, but when you lose 6 times in a row, Like, how right there have you actually been?
Yeah, well, there's been, there have been some close,
Sure, I mean, there have been some close games.
tight grinder games between
But
these
I've heard
two.
some people say, like, Chicago it's been even in these matchups. And I'm like, I don't know about that.
No, yeah. I mean, last night was not an even matchup.
No.
So, and it's 6-0. I mean, at some point that matters. I just look, if it gets to 8-0, that's kind of astounding because I would say that the Preds in their current state. So what are we talking? 14-19, 14-19, right?
Yep.
Definitely, I think a better team than Chicago. But all year long, I wouldn't say that. I mean,
No.
some of these wins happened when they weren't very good. So it just doesn't, to me, make sense that they would turn this into 8-0. But we'll see.
The Preds also didn't catch Chicago when Chicago was at their best. I think all of February they didn't play, and February was when the Hawks went on a run there.
It's a good point.
Yeah, and I think the first two games were the first week and a half of the season or something like that. You get it done in overtime, I think twice to open the season or shootout.
One overtime, one shootout, and those were two games that were just
It was
boring
rough
to watch.
man.
Yes.
Rough watch. And then, Yossi makes the one play in overtime. You feel good about it. But my goodness, that was some rough hockey. Thank God it was not like that last night. A little bit more excitement out there on the table for the Predators. And more excitement about Matt Duchene last night. He is back in the lineup, his second game after missing 22 games because of injury. He finds his way on the score sheet last night, gets one in the back of the net. Could this be a springboard for him moving forward? And how do Predators fans feel about Matt Duchene right now? We'll discuss all that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game.
This hour of Robby and Rexrode is brought to you by Train. Get a great deal this spring on a new Train heating and cooling system. At Train, they test so it runs. Visit traininfo.com to find your local dealer and learn more. It's hard to stop a train.
Here comes Ekholm in. Ekholm, his shot, he scores! Matthias Ekholm gets the Predators' third of the night. A puck tipped inside the Nashville blue line, turned into a 2-on-1 with Ryan Johansson, and Ekholm is able to cash it in. The Predators win round one of this three-round battle this week against the Chicago Blackhawks. The final, Predators 5, Blackhawks 2.
Predators get it done 5-2 last night against the Chicago Blackhawks. They scored 2 goals in 41 seconds to begin the third period to pull away from the Hawks. Now 6-0 against the Chicago Blackhawks on the season with 2 more matchups coming up later this week. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game and streaming on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. Joe, a goal scorer last night that was good to see get on the board and find one to get in the back of the net. Matt Duchene, your pick in Preds Pick to Click yesterday, finds a way to get on the board. It was a really cool play. Matt Benning with the shot. Eric Halla redirects it. And then Matt Duchene redirects the redirection from Eric Halla. So a double redirection on the play. It finds its way into the back of the net. The Predators take a 1-0 lead. But I thought that was a pretty important goal for Matt Duchene. You could see it in his response. He was very animated in his celebration. You know that's been weighing on him for a while. Now, obviously, he's been out of the lineup for 22 games, so it's not like he's just been sitting here struggling to score for the last 2 months because he has not been playing. But it's not been a productive season for Matt Duchene up until this point. He's got 9 points in 25 games now with the goal last night. How big could that goal be in terms of maybe getting him going a little bit here? Now, he did play on the third line last night again on the wing with Eric Halla and Nick Cousins. And based on the way the second line played last night with Cunnin, Granlund, and Yardcroak, probably not breaking that up anytime soon moving forward here. So, in all likelihood, still going to be on the third line moving forward, at least for now. What kind of a spark could that be for Duchene last night?
Well, the Preds hope it is one, and I thought that in 2 games he's played pretty well. I've noticed him. He's had some. He's out there some with Johansson last night too.
Yep,
which was interesting, and they almost had a couple real fancy plays between them. But yeah, he needed one badly, and it's well documented. Our buddy Adam Vingan wrote the story basically yesterday. You know, this is a stretch where the Preds really need him to step up. And look, imagine if you can have it's nice to have a third-line winger like that.
Yeah.
You know, with what the accomplishment and the ability he has. So they need Forsberg and Tolvanen back, especially for the power play, but just in general. But Duchene could really help them and really help himself too, because let's face it, at some point you look at the numbers, you look at the salary, you look at the stats, and you say, okay, this is not good enough.
Yeah.
If he were to have a hot streak here, help them get in the playoffs, play well in the playoffs, that could change the script.
It was interesting to me, and Adam brought this up a little bit yesterday on with Darren Donegan Chase, and I felt the same way. It was interesting on Saturday when they announced that he was coming back and he was coming off of IR and was going to be playing that night against Carolina. The reaction from the Predators fan base, I'm not going to say that they were like dreading it, like, oh no, but it was very lukewarm in terms of the reaction that Matt Duchene got for coming back in the lineup. There were people that said, okay, well, does he need to be in the lineup? Is he a guy that absolutely is guaranteed a spot based on the way this team has played as of late? Which I knew when Matt Duchene was healthy, he's going to be playing. He's making too much money. He's too important. He's still a good player. Now, is he worth $8 million? The answer would have to be no right now based on the production that he's had up until this point, or lack thereof. But it was interesting to see the fan base's response to Duchene coming back in there. I'm curious if you're a Predators fan, like how do you view Matt Duchene right now? Because you've got the big contract, there's all these expectations coming in, and it did feel like basically a 3 or 4 year courting process to finally get Matt Duchene in here. It happens. He comes in free agency, starts off great. I think he had like 10 points in his first 5 games or something like that. He was unbelievable. And then it's just been pretty meh since then with Matt Duchene. He is in an interesting spot right now with this fan base.
Yeah, and look, I mean, it's that does bring Turris to mind a little bit, because remember right after that move,
I think that may play into some of this too.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think with Duchene, the thing is here, like, Duchene doesn't get the benefit of some of these guys. It's like, oh, look at that effort, look at the little plays that make a difference, which are important to coaches, which are important to winning hockey games. And he's expected to do that too. He's expected to fall in and play, the way the Preds have been playing, and basically blend into their game and what they've established as kind of an identity. But then also, and you got to score goals too. I mean, ultimately, that's how he's going to be judged. Is what the score sheet says. When you're a centerman or just a player who makes that much money, that's just how it's going to be. And so I don't think it's too late for him. I mean, last year there was a lot of other things beyond him that didn't go well, and obviously we know what happened in the bubble. Was a big mistake.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Not staying on side.
Interesting that it's those two guys involved in that. Duchene and Turris. And it wasn't. And again, I don't watch him. Like, I don't watch Duchene and have the same level of, like, last year with Johansson. Like, what is happening with this guy? It's, I'm just like, well, you got to score. Okay, I see you. You're close. You're making plays. You're putting yourself in position. You're not finishing. Johansson was more like last year, I think. More like, what's up with this guy? What's going on here? But either way, it's the two guys that are making that much money, that are supposed to be your 1-2 punch down the middle that can match up with anybody out there, and they both have not come close to that.
They've not, and I agree. Like, I think especially in the early part of this year, I mean, Duchene was all over the place. He was playing well. I mean, the underlying numbers, the analytics supported that, he was one of the best players on the ice for the Predators. And, he was kind of leading the way offensively other than Forsberg with some of the chances that he was creating earlier this year, and they just weren't going in. And, right now his shooting percentage, it's in the 5s. I mean, it's a career low for him. So, I mean, I think you factor some of that in as well. I mean, you think back to a couple of years ago when he was with Ottawa/Columbus. I mean, his shooting percentage was really high. I mean, that factors into this too. There's always some regression to the mean. And look, I said this when he was a free agent. He's going to get overpaid. Like, is Matt Duchene worth $8 million? Probably not. But there were reports out there, and I know you remember this, Joe. There were reports out there when he was a free agent that he could get like 9.5, which I always just found to be absurd. So it almost felt like when he signed here for 8, that it was a little bit of a hometown discount coming here because this is a place that he wanted to be. But Duchene, I mean, he's typically been, a 52, 55, 58-point guy, and he's had a couple of 70-point seasons thrown in there. But I've always felt like the expectations on him were a little bit high coming into this anyway. And look, that's part of it. You sign that contract, you're going to have those expectations. But I think some people, when he came here, thought that he was like the second coming of Connor McDavid, and that was never going to be the case. I mean, that was never going to happen.
Well, it was a case of just a name gets played over and over and over again. It becomes this, this pursuit. Like you said, years of pursuing, and, he likes country music and bought a property and all that stuff. And I think that what he did in the postseason for Columbus,
it's great.
It's kind of like the NBA draft. I mean, there's some guys who absolutely skyrocket their stock based on their NCAA tournament play. Sometimes players come out of nowhere, or they're at least rise way up the board because they were great at that moment. He was great in that moment for Columbus, and I think that also was part of this. But yeah, anybody who's followed along said it when he came in. Like, this is a very good player. It's a very good signing, but this is not like a 100-point guy here. So calm down. He's not going to come in here and set the world on fire. But you just want him to be around a 60-point player. If he's a 60-point player for the Preds over a long period of time,
it's pretty good. You'll take it.
Sure. I mean, there's always going to be players on teams in any pro sport who were acquired on the free agent market and are paid more than their production.
Well, and again, I think there's just this perception out there that he might be gone next year or that Johansson might be gone next year. And I'm not saying that that's not going to happen, but it's going to be very difficult to make one of those things happen if you're thinking about leaving them exposed with the Kraken. Like, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe Seattle is just ready, willing, and able to take on one of those two contracts, and they really want either Johansson or Duchesne. But I think if you're the Predators, you've got to approach this more of, all right, we got to get this figured out with him. Like, this has got to be something where we make this work. You want to make it work. I mean, how long have they been looking for two centermen down the middle that you feel great about offensively? You feel like you've got it. I mean, you feel like you had it when it was Johansson and Turris, and we know how that went. Duchesne coming in now. I think Johansson's played a little bit better as of late, but this is something that's hard to find. Like, you've got to find a way to make these two guys work if you can, and maybe you can't. I think that's certainly on the table that maybe it's just not going to work. But we're 2 years into this right now. He's got 9 points in 25 games this year. I think there's just this assumption from some out there that he's going to be left exposed and Seattle's going to take him, and then you can wash your hands of it. And I would be very surprised if that happens. So I think if you're the Predators, you've got to approach it with the mindset of, all right, we've got to find a way to help him get through this and to make it work and to put him in a position where he can be as productive as possible.
Right. And then another part of this is, again, last night, watching Granlund on the penalty kill and watching Granlund in the defensive zone, the offensive zone, the neutral zone. It's like, boy, they could have a really good 1-2 punch with one of them and Granlund.
Yeah.
And so that goes to, well, they didn't trade Granlund, so if they're going to get in, he's going to be a big part of that. But also, he has to be part of the equation of if you – I think you probably have to have two of those three guys, right?
Yeah, I think so.
You're probably not going to have all three of those guys.
Probably not
in the future.
And right now, I think I know which way Predators fans probably vote on that. When we come back, we'll continue this discussion. What are your thoughts on Matt Duchesne? Can the goal last night get him going here? Do you like him playing on the wing? And how do you feel about Matt Duchesne and his tenure with the Predators moving forward? Let us know on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. We'll talk about it next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Right now, I'm discussing Matt Duchene. He finds his way on the score sheet last night for the Predators, scoring the first goal of the game for the Predators. They win 5-2 against the Chicago Blackhawks. And now asking the question, can that springboard Duchene moving forward here? Can he kind of turn this thing around and get back to being a productive player here with the Nashville Predators? 9 points in 25 games this year, scoring a goal in his second game coming back from action last night after missing 22 games because of a lower body injury. Let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in David, who's calling in from I-40. David, thanks for calling in to Robby and Rexrode.
Hey, guys. How are y'all?
Doing great. Hope you are, too.
Good.
I am great. It is an absolute honor and a pleasure to be able to talk to y'all.
Well, thank you.
I am transplanted from Birmingham 16 years ago and have just fallen in love with hockey. I'm learning daily about hockey. I really enjoy y'all's insight and listening to y'all.
Well, thank you, David.
Appreciate it.
Question. I have a couple of questions. One, what did Duchene and Turris do in the bubble?
Okay, and there was a play in the bubble where basically Turris scores a goal. It's a big goal at the end of the game. I believe, was it game 4? Game 3. It was game 3. Yeah, in the bubble against Arizona.
Yes.
And Duchene was offside on the play, didn't tag up, so that took the goal off the board. Predators
Okay.
eventually
I remember
lose that game.
then.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I thought you were talking about something else.
No.
I got just a couple of little small questions. Will the Predators re-sign Pekka, or will he be moving on to retirement?
I would say I don't know what the answer is going to be, but if I had to put a percentage on it, I'd say slightly over 50% that he retires. I don't know that. That's just a guess on my part, but that would be my guess.
I'd go about 75-25, but
So Joe's a little higher than I am.
I'm also just guessing.
Final question. What are guys, and y'all don't have to discuss it just sometime because I listen to y'all every morning. What are some of the former Predators that we didn't sign, like Turris, Watson? What are some of those guys doing with their new teams this year? I haven't been able to find where they're playing. I've gone on the website.
Yep.
If y'all could add into that, I would surely appreciate it. And once again, I thank you for your time.
Hey, David, thanks for the call. We appreciate
David.
it. We'll talk about that. Turris right now,
He's out.
he got put on waivers, so he's not going so hot for Kyle Turris. James Neal not going so hot. Austin Watson's been okay with Ottawa. But he's not,
He's hurt, though,
15
right now,
goals.
I think.
He's hurt right now, and yeah. So Bonino playing really well right now for the Wild. So
Craig Smith has been okay with the Bruins.
he's been pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Pretty consistent, Craig Smith,
yeah.
20-goal dude.
So Bonino and Smith playing really well. Others not going so well.
Yeah, I mean,
that they've lost in the offseason.
I mean,
Turris is done.
It really is amazing.
Just how quickly this happened.
Yeah. I mean, what he was when he came here and what was expected, and it's just gone the wrong way for him. And on the Duchene topic, Duchene is – he just turned 30. So there should be plenty of good hockey left. It's also he's also a guy who's been in this league basically since he was 18.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of tread off the tires with him when you talk about projecting him forward. But still, at 30, in good shape, he hasn't. Everybody gets some injury. It's not like he's had some massive injury history.
No.
You would expect some good, productive hockey ahead from him.
Well, he's kind of voiced his frustration with us every week when he joins us on Wednesdays at 8:45 about how the stretch that he's been through being hurt was maybe the second longest stretch he's had his whole career with an injury. So you're talking 22 games. So to your point, it's not like he's just been injury riddled his whole time. I still think it's there. I still think he's a good player. I think if you can find a way to get him figured out here and playing and bought into your system and just using his skill set in addition to working the way you need him to work, I think that works. I think he's good enough to where he can still be in an 82-game season a 55, 60-point guy every year, at least for the next few years. Now, when you get to 35, it's a little bit different at that point. But I think we all knew that when the contract was signed. I mean, even Roman Josi signing an 8-year deal, he's going to be like 39 when it's done. Probably not going to be the same Roman Josi at 39 as he is right now, but you live with that, with the contract that you signed with some of these guys. So I don't think it's a lost cause right now for Matt Duchene. I realize there's a lot of frustration. I get it. He's got 9 points in 25 games. That's nowhere near good enough. That's got to be better. But I don't think it's, you just totally pull the plug on it right now either. Let's go back to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Bob from Antioch to the program. Bob, thanks for calling in to Robby and Rexrode.
Good morning, guys. Regardless of what happens, whether we make the playoffs or not, I've been encouraged this year by the transformation of the identity of the team. We're, again, a hard-working team, a difficult team to play against, and that leads me to my question about Duchene. This is purely out of curiosity. I have nothing against him whatsoever. Does he have the reputation of being a kind of a soft player? Because I've never really heard him referenced in conjunction with the other people who are really, carrying that lunch pail mentality. And I was just curious about that.
Hey, thanks for the call, Bob. We'll talk about it.
He's a skill guy.
He's a scorer. It ends, to Bob's point, I don't think Duchene is ever the guy that you think about, battering people out there and throwing them aside. When Ryan Johansson is on his game, he is physically imposing. He is difficult to knock off the puck, and he'll just throw you out of the way if he has to. Matt Duchene doesn't really do that. Now, he is difficult to knock off the puck, and I think he's strong. But I will say, I think Duchene, the goal he scored last night, those are the types of goals that you need to see a little more of. He's got to find a way to get to the front of the net. And, the speed he's got, the playmaking ability, that's all great. But sometimes that works. Sometimes that leads to turnovers going the other way. I think the goal and the type of goal that he scored last night needs to be more of what you see from him, and that is finding a way to get to the hard areas, creating some traffic. Doesn't have to be a redirection every time, but just getting there for a rebound, something like that. That's not been there as often with the Predators as I thought it would. And you think back to the playoffs that we talked about with him at Columbus. That's where he scored a lot of his goals, is just hanging out in front of the net on the power play. That's got to become more of a part of his game here in Nashville.
Yeah, and I feel like he's been there in those areas quite a bit in his 2 games back. Got the one goal, but it's pretty obvious he's making a concerted effort to be there. With Duchene, you talk about his production. He had the one in 16-17 for a brutal Colorado team. He had, 41-point year in 77 games, but really since then you're talking 59, 70, before that 59, 55, 70. He's been, and even last year, as disappointing as it was, but again, I think it's the team disappointment part of it, and also just Duchene's coming in and he doesn't like the world on fire. Yeah. 42 points in 66 games, so basically it's like a 50-point season, right? Right around there. It's not disastrous.
No.
You want more than that, but again, realistically, you want him to be about a 55 to 6-point guy.
Yeah.
And that's what you signed up for.
I think you want a lot of those to be goals, too. What do you have last year? 13?
Right. Yes, this is true. So 13 goals, and that's, that's his lowest goal total now, basically, of his career since he got in the league.
Right.
He had 14 and 58 games at Colorado and 11-12. But, yeah, so, you want him to find the back of the net more, without question. 17 goals right now in a career 91 games. You want more than that.
Yeah. Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. JD text in, which player causes you more concern coming down the stretch? Ryan Ellis, Matt Duchene, or Ryan Johansson? I think Ellis is playing fine right now.
Yeah, what's up with Ellis?
I'm not concerned about him at all. Now, could that be a long-term move that they make at some point to address other areas? Maybe. I don't know. We'll
okay. So
we'll
the
have
question
the
is
to talk about that. But which player causes you the most concern coming down the stretch? Ellis, Duchene, or Johansson? I think Johansson's playing pretty well right now. So, I guess the answer would be Duchene, but he's been back for 2 games. So he's got a goal in 2 games since coming back. Can he keep this up? Do they keep him on the wing? at some point, if they do keep him on the wing, do they move him up in the lineup a little bit? Like I still think a lot yet to be determined with Duchesne, but I like the way Ellis is playing right now. I think Johansson's played a lot better as of late, so I feel pretty good about those two.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that there's, again, 2 games, but he got a goal. I don't think there's a big concern with any of those guys. But certainly the other two, I mean, Ellis is a big cog here. He does a lot of things out there for this team. And I agree with you. I mean, Johansson is active, and you notice that last night he had a couple chances at some real spectacular plays, but he's out there throwing people around a little bit, doing good Johansson things.
Vibing.
There you go.
There we go.
I hope everybody's seen that shirt, by the way.
We're going to tweet it out here in this break here. Joe Rexrode has tweeted it out as well, so we appreciate that here on the program. When we come back, we will switch gears, get into the Tennessee Titans. Looking ahead at the draft, we've talked a lot about defense, but there's a guy who's really important in the mix of all this with the Titans that they don't need to forget about when it comes to the draft. We'll discuss that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode live from the Wholesaling Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com. You're on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, hour number 2 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Streaming live on YouTube, on Periscope, and on Twitch. Taking your thoughts all show long on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025.
Streaming live with the preferred distance from face.
Yeah,
I got some
little more
snide
spread out.
comments. Got
You
some
did.
snide comments yesterday.
People
about,
were kind of rude to you yesterday with the close-up action we had to take with the Zoom coming on.
I mean, look, my face can fill a screen, okay?
Your face is pretty. I don't know what people are all upset about here.
Yeah, it's a real piece of art.
It's a beaut, Clark.
Yeah, that's right.
I love it.
I like this better.
We are a little bit more distance today. We've got the nice We're Vibing towel, rally towel from the Preds game last night that apparently they handed out. This is good stuff today here on the show.
They did, and those towels light up.
Really?
Oh, yeah. No, Brennan found that out. Brennan was in there waving. And it's like, oh, look. He's like, do these light up? I'm like, no, it's just a towel. He's like, no, check it out. They do light up.
That's fancy.
It
Wow.
is.
How about that? Predators going all out on the We're Vibing stuff right now. I'm going to tweet the photo out of the T-shirt here in just a few minutes.
Is it possible they'll raise a We're Vibing banner?
Maybe so. Depends on what they do, I guess, going forward here. Like if they march their way to a Stanley Cup title, you've got to do something with it, right? Like, could that be described as maybe not the turning point, but the mantra moving forward for the Predators?
Would you get on the cup if they win?
Oh, I hope so. I mean, it is the Stanley Cup.
Right? Yeah,
It's got
exactly.
to count for something, right?
I mean, it's Robbie's cup.
Come on. Got to count for something.
Or at least
I
get,
said,
get a swig out of it.
I'll
something.
take 2% credit. That's what I said, last week. 2% credit. I'll take it.
You got the ball rolling, man.
That's right. Let's see if
I
they
think you get more than 2%.
see if they can finish the job. Coming up here, get in the playoffs first. That'd be a good first step for the Predators on their march to the Stanley Cup. Joe, the draft a little bit more than a week away in the NFL, and we've talked a lot about defense. And by the way, like NFL.com has like this mock draft simulator that you can do that Corey Curtis put out yesterday on Twitter. So I found myself yesterday afternoon, I did like 9 mock drafts with the Titans.
Okay.
It's interesting to see how it works out. It's like
Yeah.
put yourself in the mind of a GM.
Well, I've seen those, and I feel like sometimes they're like you get someone in the 4th round that's like, wait a minute, that's like a projected first rounder. Like, how does that
Sometimes.
work?
Like I got
just randomly, like, I mean, obviously, it's obviously like some players are not available when you get to the next round, right? Like, so they like just like, are you drafting and then you're seeing everybody else what they're drafting too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like my first pick in my mock draft was Christian Barmore because he was still there, and I could have gone that. Now I will say in one of these mock drafts, J.C. Horn was still there, and I was like, okay,
gotta do it.
J.C. Horn's not going to be there at 22, but I'll take him if he's there in this mock draft. So there you go. So I had Barmore going, but we've talked a lot about defense, whether it's corner, whether it's edge rusher that you add to, and all these are important for the Titans moving forward as well. But there is a guy that I think you need to think about if you're the Titans, and that is your quarterback, Ryan Tannehill. We all know how good Derrick Henry is and A.J. Brown, and those are certainly very good weapons that the Titans have. But you have lost Jonnu Smith. You've lost Corey Davis. Adam Humphries, although I know he was hurt for most of his tenure here with the Titans, was a good player when he was on the field and when he was healthy. Like, how much of a priority should it be making sure that you surround Tannehill with good weapons? I mean, you feel great about him. You feel great about Henry. You feel great about A.J. Brown. And those are certainly 3 pretty good pieces foundationally to build your offense. But as I was kind of going through my mock draft yesterday and filling this thing out, like, Josh Palmer's there in the 3rd round on this thing. I mean, Diami Brown from North Carolina is there. I mean, there's a lot of depth at wide receiver. I think if you're the Titans and you can find a way to add a couple of explosive pieces on offense, all of a sudden you're making your job of Todd Downing a whole lot easier coming in year 1.
Well, they have to. I mean, look, they have to me, they have needs. They have needs at receiver and tight end. It's okay. It's okay to have needs at receiver and tight end. You don't, I mean, everybody has some needs, but they do. I mean, they got to have another weapon. I mean, I think they need 2, and I think they need a weapon at both spots. But even if it's just, a solid all-around tight end who can be part of the passing game, it doesn't have to be the next Jonnu Smith. But at receiver, I think you've got to look at this like this lineup when you're projecting what you're going to do offensively. There's like the TBD guy who has an important role in this offense. I mean, I really believe that. But like you just said, I don't know that you necessarily have to go that high to do it. Now, Teron Davenport, came on the show Friday, as he always does, and, he has a strong feeling on the Titans and their feelings on Elijah Moore, which makes sense. For one thing, we know John Robinson loves SEC players. I mean, he is a big SEC guy.
That SEC speed. Gotta love it.
And SEC lineman, but so look, if that's your guy, then that's fine. But honestly, I think you could still get someone who comes in here and makes a difference in the third round. You got A.J. Brown at what, 51, 52, wherever he was the second round? This is a very deep class of receivers. So I kind of like the defense first idea. But again, it's just like you have to just be true to who you believe is better overall.
Yeah, and I think Titans fans at large, they look at this roster right now and how bad the defense was last year and just say, all right, you do whatever you can do to address it. Like I've seen some Titans fans either tweet at me or some of the mock drafts they've put out where it's like defense the first 4 rounds. Like it's just corner, edge rusher, add to the line, add a linebacker because we don't like Rashaan Evans. Like there's and all of that. I mean, I guess it's possible if you're the Titans. But what you don't want to have happen is, all right, you've addressed these needs on defense, and you've become good on defense. You're still probably not going to be a top 5, top 10 defense in the NFL, but you become okay. But then all of a sudden you look around, and people are stacking 9 guys in the box trying to shut down Derrick Henry, and it's A.J. Brown out there just running routes and nobody else with it. Like your offense was so good last year. And I've gotten myself to the point where it's just going to be difficult for me to expect them to replicate that moving forward next year. But you don't want them to completely fall off the table either. And I know that some fans may say, well, you've got Tannehill, Henry, and Brown. How could you completely fall off the table? I mean, falling off the table from what we saw last year, you get to like 12th or 13th in offense. That's a pretty steep drop from what we saw a year ago. That can make a huge difference in your bottom line.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and we've talked about Darrington Evans as a little element that could be different, that could help them for sure. And so he's one guy you're going to count on. Firkser is going to be – I mean, Firkser keeps getting better. Firkser is certainly someone you have to consider in there. And we've talked about obviously they signed Josh Reynolds. I like Josh Reynolds. I think Josh Reynolds can be – I think you could look at this offense and say – yes, you need other people to make plays. Also, yes, Corey Davis had a big year. Also, yes, a lot of people with those 2 guys would get a lot of opportunities.
Sure.
And so I think Josh Reynolds will. We've talked about Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, which, of course, is, future All-Pro. Yeah. But, I mean, he and Batson, I think the Titans feel okay about those guys at the back end, and then it's just who are you bringing in? Like if you brought in again, I'm a big Rondale Moore guy. I will be until some other team takes him and benefits and goes to the Super Bowl because they have Rondale Moore. I love the idea of the slot receiver who is just a different kind of player. Again, I think Humphreys made them better when he was out there. The guy who Corey Curtis said it. They're like 3rd and 6.
Yeah.
Like you can get it any time. Like you're not gonna like that guy is going to get open for those quick hitters whenever you need it done. And the thing about a Rondale Moore and maybe an Elijah Moore too, maybe a Tutu Atwell from Louisville is then they can also take it and go with it. And so I would be in favor of something like that. You'd have to go at least 2nd round to get at least some of those. Maybe a Tutu Atwell would be later. He's a polarizing player at 155 pounds.
Well, I mean, just a part of what's made this offense so good, a huge part of it, not only is Derrick Henry on the ground and Ryan Tannehill's ability to make some big throws, but it's also just how efficient he's been. I mean, you're talking 70% of your passes in 2019 completed, 65.5 last year, 9.6 yards per attempt in 2019, 7.9 last year. I mean, these are really good, really efficient numbers. We talked last week about how good they've been in the red zone. Well, the supporting cast that you've had is a big part of that. Tannehill's been great, but when you've got Smith to throw the ball to and you've got Davis and A.J. Brown, man, that makes you got a lot of options in the red zone at that point. Right now, this team, And look, I don't know what sort of a fit Josh Reynolds is going to be in the red zone. Right now, this team doesn't have a whole lot of options to throw the ball in the red zone, and that's got to be something that you keep up with as well, because that's been a huge part of why the Titans' offense has been as good as they've been the last couple of years. Is when you get down to the 20, they're scoring touchdowns. They're not kicking field goals. And in today's NFL, as high scoring as it is, that's the name of the game. Like, you got to be good in the red zone. Like the top 3 teams in the red zone last year, the Titans, the Packers, the Chiefs, all 3 of them pretty good. I mean, there's a direct correlation there with how good you are in the red zone and what your bottom line looks like.
Well, A.J. Brown's good in the red zone.
He's pretty well, yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
I'm not saying they don't have
Smith,
anybody. I'm just saying the options right now look a little bit more bleak than they did this time last year.
They do. You know, last night at the game, I had Stillman to my left, I had Brennan to my right, which was a really interesting dynamic. Some interesting sports takes, including Brennan saying actually what the Titans should be doing right now is trading up for a quarterback and getting rid of Tannehill.
Oh yeah.
I think Stillman sort of was catching on to that. We might hear that at 2:00 today.
So. Brennan just laying out the takes last night.
We never talk about the idea of going to get a QB and get rid of Tannehill. I mean, come on.
I mean, it's got to be on the table, right?
What do you think, Todd Downing?
Make sure you tune in later on in the show as we reveal a keyword for you to text into the game line for your chance to win the T-Mobile Hockey Home Gate giveaway, a Dos Equis prize pack including a case of beer, dessert from Nothing But Cakes, a T-Mobile prize pack, and food provided by 312 Pizza Company in Germantown. We'll have that opportunity coming up for you a little bit later here in the show. We'll continue the discussion on the Titans offense coming up next. Could they be adding a receiver maybe in the first round? There's a guy out there that's a very popular name with Titans fans and with Titans media. We'll discuss that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Joe Rexrode, once again, loving the music that Porth is selecting. Coming back from the break.
So I keep the headphones off until I know what's going on. He's still trying to keep playing it right now.
Just a little lit. Is this
I
inspired from
song.
last night?
Absolutely. 90s night.
Yeah, buddy.
Joe was vibing in the suite when this was playing.
Honestly, when I heard that song, I honestly thought it was just another crappy Blink-182 song. I forgot about the band Lit. Do they have any other songs? Is that their own?
I have no idea.
Is Lit a one-hit wonder?
I don't know. I'd have to do some Spotify research or something going on there.
You know, I rip on Blink-182, but if you're the band that shamelessly rips off Blink-182, ooh, how bad are you?
Jeez.
Right?
Look.
Coming off the top rope.
I've got the Blink-182 Greatest Hits album on my phone right now, so
God.
not going to get me to say a bad word
Greatest
about them.
hits.
That's right. There's a lot of them. Hit after hit, baby.
I'd rather have Right Said Fred's Greatest Hits. I'm Too Sexy 17 remixes.
I'm sure you would.
They jammed that last night. It was good.
Oh, yeah. I bet they did. Good stuff on 90s night at Bridgestone Arena. Right now, talking Titans, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Ryan Porth, what do you think of the idea that we threw out there in the last segment where there's been a lot of talk about defense? You understand why, but you also want to make sure your quarterback has got some weapons to distribute the ball to. We saw at the end of last year that receiving depth was a little sparse out there. It was A.J. Brown, Corey Davis, and that was pretty much it. How concerned are you that the Titans' offense could take a significant step back this year if you don't address needs properly in the draft?
Well, what's significant?
They were a top 3 offense last year. So let's say going back to middle of the pack.
So somewhere in that 12 to 20 range.
Yeah, I'm not saying they go to 28th in the league or anything like that.
12 to 20, that's significant.
Yeah.
Okay. I would agree that that's a significant drop, and I am concerned that will happen. And that is the root reason why last November I was so ticked off about this defense, because you knew Arthur Smith was probably going to get a job. Jonnu Smith and Corey Davis were free agents. I don't think we all expected at that point in the season that all 3 would be gone going into 2021. But you knew with the way that they were playing and the potential for all 3 of them to be gone, that there was no guarantee that 2021 the offense was going to look identical to what it was last year, and the defense did not allow the offense to take advantage just as a team as a whole. So, yeah, I'm worried that offense this season is not going to be what it was last year, not even close. And I do think the play calling is a big part of that. Not to say that Todd Downing is going to come in and be terrible, but a new coordinator with new weapons, and the only time Ryan Tannehill really has been consistent in his career to this extent is with Arthur Smith. So there's that unknown of what Tannehill's going to look like under Todd Downing. So, yeah, I am concerned.
Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Andrew from Dover text in. I'm an Alabama fan through and through, but it would be nice to see Brown and Moore reunited on the Titans. Then that gives Tannehill 3 really good options to throw. And then you had Derrick Henry working on his pass catching. This could be a top 5 offense once again coming in next year. We did talk about it yesterday. Derrick Henry out there running some routes.
Pass catcher extraordinaire.
That could be another option for the Titans in the red zone, is sending Derrick Henry on like a fade route to the corner. He was working on those.
Yeah, hey. Any way to get him the ball is a good idea to me. See, I don't know about this. Well, Downing's a big part of it, but I don't know that there's a significant drop-off. A lot of that comes down to, first of all, Jonnu Smith is a special talent, but the production was not huge, right? I mean,
Sure.
We know there's reasons why. I mean,
He was a big part of the red zone success, though.
yeah. But you bring Lawan back, you're healthy right now in the offensive line. That should there's an upgrade from what you were the second half of last season automatically, right? Just by having your Pro Bowl left tackle.
Sure.
And then the Corey Davis thing it's going to be interesting. It's interesting to see what he does with the Jets, and whoever gets those snaps. I think Josh Reynolds will get a lot of them. how much of Corey Davis's production last year. I mean, look, he ran the routes, he caught the ball, he was a big physical receiver, he was good. It was easily the best year of his career. But is that not duplicatable, replicable by someone else?
Replicable.
You like replicable? Is that not replicable by another person in this offense, in this exact same setup, with that line, with that running game, with A.J. Brown? Is that not something that I'm not saying anybody could do? I'm not saying that. But was Corey Davis a real beneficiary of things around him?
Well, let me ask you this. There's been a lot of chatter, and Andrew brought it up on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, about Elijah Moore. You've talked about Rondale Moore. So if the Titans add Elijah Moore in the first round, which is still amazing to me, I've seen him go from anywhere from 22 to 56 in some of these mock drafts. But if the Titans take Elijah Moore in the first round, and he's reunited with A.J. Brown, and you've got A.J. Brown, Elijah Moore, and Josh Reynolds, which trio do you like better? A.J. Brown, Elijah Moore, Josh Reynolds, or A.J. Brown, Corey Davis, and Adam Humphries?
Yeah, that's a good question. The problem with that is, like, I do think that Reynolds can be in the neighborhood of Davis. I do. We don't know. I know that Humphries, when he's right, is good.
Yes.
He's tough, man. Yeah, I mean, that's why. Look, did they overpay? Absolutely. I mean, we had one of our guys, Mike Sando, did worst free agent signings for teams, and he was kind of picking my brain on the Titans, and he threw out Humphries, and I'm like, I see what you're saying because the numbers aren't really there, sure, but I don't agree with that. I actually think that it was a good addition to the offense. When he was, we just didn't see it so much at all. Again, I go back to last year when he came back for the Kansas City game, you saw the difference for him. I think it could be better. Is Elijah Moore going to be able to play all year? That right there gives you a leg up. But I guess I would still go with last year's just because there's a little bit too much unknown. But I think that Josh Reynolds is comparable to Corey Davis.
Let me ask you, what do you think of those two trios that I've tossed out there with Elijah Moore, A.J. Brown, and Josh Reynolds? Do you like that trio better, or do you like Corey Davis, A.J. Brown, and Adam Humphries?
I would take Brown, Davis, and Humphries.
Okay.
Because of the unknown. Reynolds hasn't been a number 2 before, and you're a receiver in the draft can have all the potential in the world, but you're still rolling the dice, especially if you're banking on that receiver to come in year one and be an impact player. So I would take Brown, Davis, Humphries. And I still feel like John Robinson is undervaluing the 4th and 5th positions on the depth chart for receiver, just like he did last year.
I agree.
Well, now he may draft multiple receivers. That's right.
He could.
I hear what you're saying. It's just I have a bigger concern about the fact that Adoree Jackson, Malcolm Butler, Kenny Vaccaro, and Desmond King are gone. That's, you talk about undervaluing things, they've had to cut the hell out of their salary, right? So,
but the secondary last year wasn't something that you could depend on. As good as a couple of those players were, Butler and Vaccaro, yes, but are they really going to miss Adoree Jackson from 2020 to this year?
Well, I think they'll miss Adoree Jackson. No, if you take right off the injury, Adoree Jackson, sure, that guy's.
Well, the way he's getting
that guy's
paid,
an easy
he's
cut.
going to have 17 interceptions this year.
Yeah,
has he had 17 interceptions in his entire life?
Probably not.
Didn't he have 2 at USC and then 2 here?
2 here,
yeah,
maybe in high school.
But we also know that you can be an elite cornerback in this league and have none, right?
Sure.
But I'm just saying when you talk about valuing things. I'm more concerned about the valuing of the cornerback position now and what it looks like compared to previously. And again, I think both things are going to be addressed in the draft.
But doesn't the cornerback position automatically look better if the pass rush is better?
Oh, sure. No doubt. Look, if you give me a choice, am I going to have the best coverage guys ever or the most fierce pass rush? It's an easy choice. But You're not going to
Still
get to the
gotta cover
quarterback
somebody.
ever. You're not going to go from never getting the quarterback to always getting to the quarterback. So you might want to be able to run with guys for a few steps.
We'll continue the discussion on the Titans when we come back. Got a lot of your thoughts to get to on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. We'll do that next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. .102.5 The Game is kicking off every weekend with free beer. Free beer! And who doesn't love free beer? Make sure you're tuning in all day Friday for your chance to win a $25 gift card from Bavarian Beer House located at Opry Mills Mall. We'll have that opportunity coming up for you on Friday. A little bit more under control with the voice today, Porth.
I had to, maybe orchestrate something different because the voice is still not at 100%.
I mean, yesterday you kind of sounded like a bachelorette at the end of a pedal tavern trip. I mean, it was struggling there.
Pretty much.
Yeah. You're getting a little stronger, I feel like.
Free beer. Was that better?
Yeah, it was good.
All right.
That was like a movie trailer guy. It was good. Way to go.
In a world.
There you go. Yep.
Talking Titans, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. By the way, some breaking news in the NFL. This coming from Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network. The Panthers are hosting former Titans defensive tackle Daquan Jones on a visit, source said, and they are expected to sign him to a one-year deal. The underrated Jones fills up a need for Carolina, a big body up front who has started for Tennessee since 2015. So Daquan Jones has been out there on the market. Looks like he could be heading to the Carolina Panthers.
Good player. It was not going to, the Titans weren't going to, just like a lot of guys who, if they could pay, they'd probably pay, but you can't. So there's another, when you look at the loss of him, you got Autry coming in, you got Simmons. I've very much warmed to the Christian Barmore thing, even though it's not technically a need, like a front line
Just because
need.
Brugler said it?
Pretty much. I'm pretty much just copying Brugler. Yeah, whatever Brugler said. Yeah, exactly.
So that trio question I threw out in the last segment about the trio of A.J. Brown, Elijah Moore, and Josh Reynolds, or A.J. Brown, Corey Davis, Adam Humphries. If it's Rondale Moore instead of Elijah Moore, does that change your mind? Are you just unequivocally sold on the Rondale Moore trio at that point?
Greatest receiving core in history if it's Rondale Moore.
I agree.
MVP is a rookie, so yeah, that's a totally different discussion.
Just totally changes the conversation there. We do have a person on Twitter that goes by some guy working from home, says Delaney Walker is back in shape and wants to play. Sign him to an incentive-laden contract. What do you think of that, Delaney Walker?
Well, I tweeted back, and he got all mad at me, but and basically said, all you want, but he's an amazing route runner. His hands are like glue. As a day one Titans fan, I'm sick of players who can't catch. First of all, was that a problem last year? Players who can't catch?
A.J. Brown dropped a couple balls. That was it.
Yeah, I mean, he dropped the one big pass. Yeah,
He had some dropsies midway through the year.
Okay.
Caught a lot of important passes, too.
Yeah, I wouldn't say drops were like a big problem. Look, Delaney Walker was a great player. Outstanding, one of the best free agent signings in Titans history. I mean, you saw the last time he tried to play, and he had the gruesome injuries, 36. I'm not saying he won't be in the league again. I'm saying I think the Titans have moved on and probably should have moved on.
Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Mark from Clarksville text in. Would you guys be more in favor to trade up for a Devontae Smith or a Jalen Waddle if they fall to pick 12 or 14, or trade back to 26 through 29 and pick up Elijah Moore and get an extra pick in the top 100? So if you had your choice, if you're John Robinson, let's say Devontae Smith falls to 12 or 13, do you trade up and go get him, or are you more comfortable trading back and getting Elijah Moore, maybe at 26 or 27, and picking up an extra pick?
I mean, look, I'm not saying like it's not intriguing to think about one of those guys, a Devontae Smith, but what are you giving up? What are you giving up to move up 10 spots or whatever it might be to do that? I really think you've got to hit on a lot of positions to fill out your depth in some spots, and in other spots to have someone ready to start at some point this year, a couple of them. So my answer would probably be trade back, even though it's very intriguing to think about talent like that. Now, the problem with, again, trading back is who's desperate to get into 22. Yeah. That's, a team has to be like, I got to get to 22 so team X doesn't draft player X. Now, actually, I do. If there's one guy I think could be that kind of guy, it might be a Barmore. If he falls, maybe there's a team that's like, this is exactly what we need up front defensively. And then if you were the Titans, you could trade back, or you could be like, maybe we should take Barmore.
I mean, if you're trading up to, 12 overall, and first off, I don't know if Devontae Smith's going to fall that far, but if he does, you're trading probably either a future first-round pick or certainly maybe a second-round pick this year involved in it as well. You're going all of a sudden from having 4 picks in the top 100 to, I guess, 3 at that point, where we've talked about going the other way and trying to get more, like maybe 5 in the top 100 based on all the needs that you have. It would just be – and I get it. Devontae Smith is very intriguing. Jalen Waddle, even though I don't think he falls that far, very intriguing. And if they're still on the board, I mean, I'd think about it if I was the Titans. I don't see them pulling the trigger on something like that.
Yeah, I don't, and I'm dubious about that even being a possibility. I understand that lately there's been more of the mocks that have sort of funneled some of those guys lower, but
yeah,
I don't know. Look, I guess like if you trade like a 2022 first, which certainly could allow you to still have depth in this draft, and you might be getting yourself a star player. I mean, look, top talent is hard to come by. I mean, I'm not totally opposed to that. I would be more okay with that. It's a go for it move than giving up depth of your draft capital in this draft.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texter that says, I say you just stack up offensively and keep it moving. Just get us to the middle of the pack on defense, and I think we'll be good.
Just do that. That's all you got to do.
That's going to be a process.
That's the thing. It's not easy to even get to middle of the pack. Where are they now? They're not middle of the pack.
Well, how much better do you feel with Bud Dupree coming in and Danico Autry? I mean, that's the question. I mean, you've got those two coming in, so you have to feel better about the pass rush. You also don't really have a proven good NFL corner on your roster right now.
Well, Janoris Jenkins, I think.
Well, I mean, Janoris Jenkins is out there, but he's 33.
Yeah.
Like, we saw it last year. You can hit that cliff in a hurry if you're not careful. So, I mean, do you feel better now than you did when the season ended about the defense? I think you'd have some Titans fans that say, absolutely. You've got Bud Dupree. You've got Danico Autry. The pass rush is better. And you'd have some say, yeah, the pass rush is better. Now you can't cover anybody. Like, it's a really interesting spot that defense is in right now.
Right. Dupree's got to be great, and maybe he will be. That makes a big difference. Autry's got to be peak Autry. That would make a big difference. I think Jayon Brown coming back is pretty significant.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a playmaker, and when he's on the field, this defense is flat out better. I still like the safety. I mean, I think they're going to be okay with Hooker stepping in. But they've got to have, and this is why, again, like you talk about moving up to get a Devontae Smith. I say if you think J.C. Horn is an absolute stud who's going to come in and start for you, then that's where I'd move up to do. Or take a Newsome if he's there, or even if you have to move up a couple spots or something like that. I mean, to me, you have to have another cornerback on this team that really can play.
Let's go to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texter that says the Titans should give the Dolphins a third first-round pick and move back and take picks 36 and 50. So the Dolphins already have 2 first-round picks. Texter saying, give them another one.
Okay, so why are the Dolphins like, ooh, we got to get to 22?
I don't know.
Like why does the other team want to do that? I mean, sure, it sounds good, but the Dolphins already are like, I'm sure would like some of their own depth, right, and more picks. So why are they like, oh, we got to be at 22 to do what? I mean, maybe it works out, but I think people don't think about the other side enough on these things. You think about trading up to get a certain player, but you think about trading down, that's because another team wants a certain player.
Right.
And usually in drafts, there aren't a ton of like guys in the 20s that are like that. Sometimes it happens, so it could happen, but it's hard to be able to count on that.
When we come back, we will switch gears and get back into the Nashville Predators. With the way UC Saros is playing right now, has he created a mental edge against the Blackhawks? And could it be that maybe Pecorine only has one more game left in his career? We'll discuss that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Be sure to tune in every weekday for your chance to win $1,000. It's the game's 1K payday. Listen for the keywords at 9, noon, and 3. And when you hear it, go to thegamenashville.com and enter the keyword for shot at $1,000. We'll have that opportunity coming up for you on our show today here at 9 o'clock on the program. So make sure you're tuned in for that. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Joe, before we get back in the Preds, I do want to go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. CD text in, if you could draft any football movie character in the first round, who do you take? I'm grabbing Bobby Boucher and moving him to edge rusher. Be a heck of a pass rusher, man.
You might have some penalties on your hand, though.
You might.
That's the only problem. You're going to get some 15-yarders.
A lot of flag trouble, yeah.
Bobby Boucher would be good. Trying to think. Johnny B. Good.
Yeah.
Anthony Michael Halls. But again, the Titans are okay. Quarterback, at least most people think so.
Yeah, most people. There are a few
Some in my
detractors.
family who somehow,
Few detractors.
Yeah. Trash. He's trash, man. He's trash.
So-
Everybody's trash.
Yeah, everybody's. Is that the thing now? The kids say just everything's trash?
Trash, toxic. But another thing that he loves to say is dog water. Have you heard this one?
Yeah.
Dog water. What does that mean?
It means not good.
Bro, he's dog water. What?
They're getting creative now with the stuff they come up with.
This Sparks tweet is pretty good. There's a picture that Porth took of Jared, Caroline, and me in the box, and Sparks says, looks like Dad visiting the kids at college, surprising them with game tickets and a trip to Chili's.
Yeah. There you go.
Well done. Well done, Sparks. That's a much better take than Kenston thinking Jared looks jacked.
That's going to make his day.
Buff Jared.
Jared's going to frame that tweet and
Yeah.
put it in his workout room. It's going to be awesome.
Yes. And I said, jacked? You mean jacked up?
Wow. A little hostile.
Sorry, Jared.
It's okay. Joe, getting back into the Predators, Saros, look, we've talked a lot about him. He's been amazing, and he was very good once again last night for the Predators against the Blackhawks. Number one, I talked about it with Dylan Strome. I do think there's a little bit of kind of some mental stuff going on right now with the Blackhawks. Saros has just been excellent all season long against them, and it's gotten to the point now where I think you see guys trying to bear down and make that perfect shot rather than just shooting the puck and seeing what happens there. I mean, that's how they scored their goals last night. It's a broken play. The puck ends up on DeBrincat's stick. He just fires it. And then the second goal they scored, David Camp gets one right in the middle, and Saros is going the complete other way and never saw the puck. So sometimes it's better just to put that thing on net and see what happens. But I think Saros is a little bit in the heads right now of the Blackhawks. I would expect he's going to play on Wednesday and Friday, so I would be very surprised if Pekka sees either one of these two games. And Joe, that got me thinking last night, I'm looking at this schedule for the Predators coming down the stretch here. You've got the rest of this week coming up against Chicago. You've got a back-to-back set next week at home against Florida, and I would think that Pekka probably gets one of those games. After that, you've got a 3-day break, and then you've got Dallas. You've got, a break between Columbus and Carolina as well, and you close the season out with 2 games against Carolina. I think Saros is probably going to get all those if he keeps playing the way he's playing right now. So could it be that Pekka Rinne might have 1 game left in his career? We don't know what he's going to do this offseason. He very well could come back next year and decide to continue playing, but I do think there's at least a decent chance that he's going to retire after this year. Could we be down to the point where maybe there's 1 game left just based on the way the schedule plays out for Pekka Rinne?
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think it's possible. I think if you're a Preds fan, you hope there's 1 game left this season because it means that Saros is continuing to play well.
Yeah.
Because if Pekka Rinne plays more than that, it probably means that something flips the other way on Saros, either injury or performance. But, yeah, someone asked earlier, a caller, about Pekka coming back next year, and I think you said a little more than 50% you think he's going to retire. I mean, maybe I'm just overthinking this or I'm exaggerating it, but I'm more like in the 75-25 on Pekka Rinne retiring after this year. What are you, Porth?
I'd probably be right there with you, Joe.
I mean, maybe
it makes sense.
Who knows? It's hard to know. I mean, I'm sure he's enjoying the overall ride here with this team. So you feel – because I think some of the retirement talk is also like, do you want to be part of the pain that's to come? So if you're Pekka Rinne and you feel like, no, this team is actually like it's got a chance to be really good next year. Maybe then that makes it more likely you sign up for more of that. So now that I think about it, put me back to 65-35.
Okay. Do you feel like the way the team has played has a bigger impact on him coming back than the way he would have been playing earlier in the year?
Well, I think that I don't know about bigger, but I just think that I mean, look, right now it's clear who the number one goaltender is, obviously, right? So I think it's just more like if you could still be part of something good, that's gotta be on the list of pros, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would think so.
I mean, yeah. Sorry, him going down and the team going down. That's really a recipe to retire.
Sure, yeah. And look, I think if you're him, like you're in an interesting spot now in your life. I mean, you've just had a kid. You've done almost everything there is to do in this game. Obviously, the Stanley Cup is still something that you're pursuing and still something that's missing from your resume. But, I mean, he's had a phenomenal career, obviously. I also wonder, like, would he want another crack at it just based on the fact that there's largely been, not very many fans in the building this year? Like, he's a guy that I think's got a special connection with this fan base. And I'm not saying that's a reason to come back and play an entire other season, but, like, it is kind of – and I thought about this at the beginning of the year. Like, what if we get to the point where this is it with Pekka and there's 33% of the building that's in there to see him for his last game? Like, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if that's a reason to come back and play another year, but that's got to be something in your mind if you're him. Like, man, that would suck for it to be a way to go out and the building's not full all season.
No, that's a good point. He could come back next year and just retire after a week.
Could be.
Have the season over. But I think another thing is I really think that when he thinks of everything, I mean, he cares about this team. So is there a viable backup next year for Saros? Like, would this team need him to know that they've got a guy that can be a good backup? Does he feel like that he's leaving them a little bit high and dry with no one that you feel great about to support Saros?
Well, it's just an interesting thought here because I don't think people really allowed themselves to think about this yet. Like, I was looking at the schedule. We're getting down to the end of it here, and he's not going to be playing a whole lot. Like, there literally could be – and I assume he plays that back-to-back. Maybe he doesn't. Like, maybe Saros, you're just riding him as long as you can ride him because you're going to need every point as you move forward here. Like, I still think Pekka has played well enough this year. You feel okay about putting him in the net. Like, it's not like you're just scared of putting him in the net. And I think there was probably at least a stretch last year where maybe you were. Maybe you were kind of fearful about putting him in the net.
I'd be fearful. I think you have to play him in that back-to-back. I mean,
look. Too. I mean,
they've got some gap between these games, but there's a lot on Saros right now. Yeah. I think a night off for him would be a good idea, especially, trying to make this playoff run. You're going to probably be asking him to beat Carolina once, if not twice, at the end, and then get in the postseason. Yeah. I would give him that night for sure.
To answer your question, Joe, they could pretty easily go out in the free agent market and find a 1B or a backup to Saros.
Yeah, that's true. But again, then you're paying for it. And what's the money situation looking like? Trying to get Granlund back here?
Well, you'd probably be paying less for that goalie than
for
you
Pekka?
are right now for Pekka Rinne.
Yeah, like
maybe not though.
Maybe not.
Maybe he'll take the hometown discount too.
Somebody on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says Pekka to Seattle. No, he's not going to Seattle.
No,
his contract is up after this year. He will not be eligible to be selected by Seattle. So you don't have to worry about that. He's not going to end up going to the Kraken.
Yeah, I guess unless
he just signs there as a free agent.
They could sign him as a free agent. Yeah,
he's not doing that.
He could retire a Kraken.
Maybe he just really
sign
loves,
a one-day contract.
Yeah. Really loves the aquatic lifestyle.
He loves fishing, and there's a lot of fishing in Seattle.
Yeah, that's
you don't want to come across a Kraken when you're fishing.
He could grill up some serious fish up there.
It's true. Who knows? Maybe that's it. I thought about that last night in the second intermission. I was just kind of looking at the schedule and saying, man, like I see one obvious spot for Pekka. And look, maybe he gets another one. Like maybe the Predators, they continue this run and they're, 5 points clear of the Stars and the Blackhawks by the time the last game comes around. I mean, you play Pekka at that point anyway. But I see one glaringly obvious spot for him left to play. And that's it. And then we just don't know. Like, if they get in the playoffs, he's probably not going to play. It's going to be Saros.
If he retires, I predict that the season opener next year, they'll raise his jersey.
Think it'd be that quick? I mean, it could be.
I mean, I know that's fast. And usually there's some
Usually
lag
doesn't
time.
happen. Yeah, usually doesn't happen
right
that
away.
quick.
Yeah,
Right.
no, I know.
But it's the first one.
But hey,
I mean, he's gonna get his jersey retired.
You know, this is a franchise that likes to raise banners. Okay,
Yeah.
So why not raise a
Maybe
jersey?
put the
fast?
Vibin one right next to it. Add the Rene banner and the Vibin banner right next
And
to it.
one of your face.
Yeah, maybe
Is
so.
your face on the Vibin one?
Maybe
Yes.
so. I think so.
Got to be.
It's got to be at this point. When we come back, we'll switch gears, get into a little bit of Tennessee Vols talk. Trey Wallace from Rocky Top Insider will join us. That's coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, live from the Wholesale Link Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com. You're on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, hour number 3 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. And it's time to go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our good friend Trey Wallace from Rocky Top Insider. Trey, what's going on, brother? How we doing?
Hey, guys. Hope everybody is doing well in the mid-state. You guys are good on this, Tuesday?
Oh, yeah.
Close to the spring game.
That's exactly right. Trey, is Tennessee becoming a baseball school? What'd you think of that weekend series between Tennessee and Vanderbilt?
Man, I tell you, that was a lot of fun to cover. You look at what Tennessee's done this season when it comes to baseball and Tony Vitello, and I would say, yeah. I mean, you've got a lot of fan support, and that crowd at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. I mean, if it was full capacity, it'd have been even crazier. But as people probably noticed on television, I mean, just the atmosphere, and when Evan Russell jacked that grand slam, it was like Tennessee hitting a fourth quarter touchdown to take the lead in Neyland. Like the excitement level was through the roof. So. You have to give credit to the fans that came out, but you also have to give credit to Tony Vitello and his boys for, they're clicking and they're putting something special together in Knoxville.
Yeah, no, I agree, Trey. He's done really amazing work in a short period of time. How much do you think it's a priority? And I know it's tough. I think it was obvious with Philip Fulmer, because – he had kind of demonstrated that, but how much do you think it's a priority for Danny White? Do you think Danny White's going to be faced with a tough spot here in the offseason based on some of these programs that might have openings?
I mean, yeah, I think he's going to be in a position, that they're going to have to negotiate some stuff here. They've spoken multiple times since Danny White took the job here in Knoxville, and look, Tony Vitello's laid out kind of what he needs. And I don't think there's kind of any like mid-season negotiations going on, but they are talking about, look, we need some facility upgrades here. We need some bleachers down the left field line. We need some more money for the assistant coaches, for the strength staff. That was one of the key things too before the season even started and before the transition even happened, when Philip Fulmer was still athletic director, is Tony Vitello wanted more money for his strength and conditioning coach over there and wanted more money for some of the assistants. And I think they're going to have to come with that. And also I think they're going to have to bump Tony up when it comes to his pay. Because, Joe, that stadium, there's only so much they can do to make it look good on the inside. On the outside, it's like a concrete, just regular, plain old, looks like the outside of a jail. I mean, it just looks rough, and there's nothing they can do about it right now. They can't go in there and remodel the whole thing in the off season. But if you can get him some renovations inside the stadium, do him something down the left field line like he wants, maybe some suites, something like that, promise him a bunch of things and get that in action, then I think that's going to sweeten the pot, because I think there's going to be at least one SEC school, possibly two, that come after him after the season's over, and it's going to make things interesting. So I think Danny White and them are making it a priority because they're starting to see what this could bring to the university. And I think that's a key thing, because when you look around the country, I mean, the scenes in Oxford, in Starkville, in Baton Rouge, when they're good, look, you want that when it comes to college baseball, and even there in Nashville, maybe not as big as the stadium, but just the atmosphere from the fans. So, I think something's going to get done, and I think they're going to have to hold off some folks.
Trey Wallace from Rocky Top Insider on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Trey, the spring game coming up for Tennessee football on Saturday, and the quarterback room right now is pretty interesting. You've got Joe Milton apparently transferring to Tennessee. We found that out yesterday. Hendon Hooker in the mix as well. Harrison Bailey. Caden Salter coming in as well. I mean, Brian Maurer's still there. How do you think this shakes out for Tennessee at quarterback, and what are you most looking forward to about the spring game coming up this weekend?
I mean, they might as well just have one or two more quarterbacks. I mean, what's it going to hurt?
Exactly right.
But you know what? I think starting off with quarterbacks, like this is something that Josh Heupel has to get right in his first year, and he's got to be able to build somebody up over the period of time that he's going to be here, and we don't know how long he's going to be here. We don't know how long his contract says. But, you know, when they went out and got Milton, first off, it's not like they went out and got Joe Milton over the weekend and committed, you know, got him to – technically he's not so-called committed publicly yet, but they didn't get all this done in the last 3 or 4 days. This has been going on for like 3 to 4 weeks. And to get him to enroll into school, he's been around Knoxville. He's been around, you know, hanging out with future teammates and starting to build a relationship quietly with them. I think he did the right thing when it came to the room, because you look what's out there in the transfer quarterback market. I mean, you weren't going to go get like Austin Kendall or something like that. So you ended up with Joe Milton, who I think has some really good upside. And it shows you that they're not comfortable with what they have in the room. Like, I think they're comfortable with a Kendon Hooker, okay? But I don't think they're comfortable completely with Harrison Bailey or Brian Maurer being the guys that if they had to roll with and start the whole season, you know, that's where the problem lies in. And this wasn't an insurance thing or anything like that. They think Joe Milton could come in and compete for the starting job. I think it goes to talk about the evaluation that you had with the other two quarterbacks. And we're not even talking about Caden Salter yet. He looks like now, you know, he's so far behind. He's kind of in the same boat when it comes to a playbook, I guess, with Joe Milton. But Joe Milton's got experience playing college football. So, you know, smart move by Josh Heupel. And when it comes to the spring game this weekend, you know, I think you're going to see a good amount of players, you know, not participating because they don't want to injure themselves. They don't want to, you know, hurt any kind of progress that they have made this off season or this spring when it comes to coming back from injuries. You know, I'm curious in the linebackers and the defensive line. Like, you know, Joe, Robby, Tennessee secondary is going to be pretty decent this year. But the problem lies in is that, you know, Jeremy Banks has been out all spring. And you got Roman Harrison, who's been pretty much out all spring. So you're having to roll with guys like Pat Garland and Solon Page and Morvan Joseph, and there's not a lot of depth in that position. And the next key factor is, can the defensive line actually do something for Tennessee this year? They had the bodies. They've got some talent there. But as we've seen over the last 2 to 3 years, they haven't put much pressure on the quarterback. So it's like, who's going to step up and be that monster on the defensive line? And, you know, they mentioned a few. I would say that Byron Young, the JUCO product, is coming along really well, talking to some folks. And, you know, you got Tyler Barron and you got Bryson Eason, you know, can even come off the edge if you need it. So they've got some pieces to go along with, you know, the Matthew Butlers and the Bumpus and, you know, the Middleton and the Solomon. But the problem right now is you need consistency on that defensive line. And so I'm interested to see how that plays out. I know they had a good scrimmage on Saturday, really took it to the offense kind of in that second portion of that scrimmage. And now we'll have to see, you know, everybody's excited to watch the quarterbacks play, and I completely understand that, and to see what this offense can do. But it's not like it's going to be a complete showcase out there. And, you know, so I'll be interested to see the format that they do on Saturday and how far along this offense actually is.
I got to say, Trey, on the quarterbacks, I watched a fair amount of Joe Milton this year. I don't get it. I don't. I mean, I think that he really struggled to be consistent as a passer, decision maker, and lost his job for a team with a not very good offense. But it's. I mean, I get, you know, adding people, but like, do you actually think that he could come in here and possibly beat out those guys?
I don't know how true it is, but I was told yesterday, and this doesn't take up for anything that Joe Milton did. I don't know Joe. You know, I've spoken with Joe Milton, but I don't know the kid personally, but I was told that he had a torn ligament in his throwing hand that happened against Michigan State. And maybe that's why you saw a decrease in his play. Whatever. It's not about excuses. It's just about what you put on the field. So I look at it as, okay, who else would they have gotten that they could have been comfortable with at that time? Do you wait till after spring and you look around the country and you see, okay, who's going to enter the transfer portal, because they have these new dates set up where you have to let schools know when you're going to be leaving and whatnot. Was that going to be the plan? I don't know. But the timeline of this thing was going to get Milton. It's not like they made the decision overnight to do this. And Josh Heupel's familiar with it. He recruited him when he was the offensive coordinator at Missouri. He's from Orlando. The coaching staff has seen tape on him. They kind of know Joe Milton's game, and I guess they feel comfortable. Joe, to be honest with you, it's I watched what he did last year. Does he stand out? He stands out physicality. He has a long arm, but he does have to work on decision making. So no, I'm kind of there with you. It was kind of an interesting take, but they must feel comfortable, and if they do, I guess you have to trust the coaching staff.
Yeah, and look, hey, the more depth, the more competition, the more talent. I'm not opposed to it.
Right.
And to your point there, he did have in January thumb surgery, so maybe that has to do with the ligament you're talking about. Certainly, it did. That's about when the performance started taking a turn. So that's a good tidbit. I got to ask you, speaking of bringing in talent, Trey, Rick Barnes' team loading up all of a sudden. You got Fulkerson coming back. The front court is Fulkerson coming back, not a big surprise, but you got 2 5-stars that you've brought in. Now, I do wonder how ready are those guys to come right in next year and, rebound in the SEC and do it, be in ball screens defensively, all that stuff. But what's your outlook for this team now, given all these moves? Plus, of course, Justin Powell, a big-time shooter, which I think was a huge need for this team.
See, I think that one's the key, Joe. I think Justin Powell is what Tennessee needed immediately. And look, we can talk about post presence all day. Tennessee struggled last year, and that's understandable. But with Fulkerson coming back, maybe you get the type of Fulkerson that you saw 2 years ago and not last season. But when you add Justin Powell to your shooting capacity, and then you look at players like Brandon Hadley-Humfield, can he come in and be a guy that can at least take care of the rebounding part of what Tennessee does? Because losing E. Pons, is going to be key. You got to make up for that somehow. Can he be that long guy? You look at Adu. Okay, can he come in and be somebody that can rely on the post when it comes to points? That's another key thing. They bring in Quentin Diombi, who has a French connection, who has played down in the state of Florida, going to play on the French national team, the under-18 team this coming summer. He's a developmental type player. So they've added spots. And then, you talk about Kenny Chandler and whatnot and so on. So they've added guys to this class that makes you think, wow, okay, you've seen Rick Barnes and his staff develop players in the past. Can they do the same thing over a full summer, without the craziness of COVID, which is, look, it's still going on, but the university, they have a better handle on it. So you get that full off season. And I think that's the key thing for Tennessee here. If they can have those guys ready to go when it comes to the current players, like Triple J, when it comes to Vescovi, and Victor Bailey, being able to be a cohesive unit, that's fine. You can have all the talent in the world to bring in. Like we've seen this from other schools around the country. We saw it with Tennessee last year. You can bring in Jaden Springer and Keon Johnson, but if a group doesn't work together and it's not cohesive and you've got things going on, and I'm not saying bad things, but when they're trying to figure out each other's games, you see how things can maybe not go your way, like we've seen with Kentucky for so many years, and then bringing one-and-done type players in. So I'm interested to see how Rick Barnes handles it and this new staff that he's put together. And if they can get this group in and get them going, Tennessee should be a top 10, top 15 team next year, and the talent on the court should be a part of that.
Trey Wallace from Rocky Top Insider has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Trey, great stuff as always, brother. Appreciate you taking time to join us this morning.
Hey, guys, y'all have a great week. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You as well. When we come back, we'll react to a little bit of what Trey had to say there, including getting our thoughts on the quarterback situation at Tennessee as well. All that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. When the Preds have a weekday game this season, it's your chance to participate in Preds Pick to Click, brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka. If you guess a Preds player that scores a goal in the game that night, you win a prize pack. The next chance to participate is tomorrow morning at 8:45, so make sure you're tuned in for that. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Chris Mason joining us here in about 10 minutes at 8:30, talking all things Nashville Predators, so looking forward to that. Should be an amazing conversation that we're going to have with him coming up here in just a few minutes. So looking forward to that. Thanks to Trey Wallace for joining us in the last segment. Joe, what do you think of what he threw out there, that maybe Joe Milton could come in and compete for the starting quarterback job, and maybe Josh Heupel and company don't feel great about what they've got behind Hendon Hooker at this point? That does not speak well of Harrison Bailey. That's what I've thought about the whole time, like of, Harrison Bailey was supposed to be the next guy and supposed to be the next quarterback at Tennessee, and doesn't seem like the coaching staff's all that impressed with Harrison Bailey.
The unknown, undefeated, and then they start playing, and who knows? I mean, Jarrett Garantano was a dual threat quarterback. A big recruit. I mean, a lot of these quarterbacks are big recruits, and it's not. I guess it's not all that different for the NFL. How many first-round quarterbacks ever live up to their draft spot? Very few. So, yeah, look, there was some of this last year on Harrison Bailey, some questions about whether, he was going to live up to this. Now, it's very early for him.
Yep.
So you have to allow for the light to come on, for players to work through things and improve. But, yeah, you would hope that right now he might be, up near the top of the depth chart and distancing himself, and that doesn't appear to be the case. Also, maybe this means Brian Maurer is improving. I mean, that's –
sign me up.
I mean, it's hard. It's like, what does it mean if whatever the depth chart says? Does this mean that it's because this guy at the top of it is really, upped his game, or is it just because they just haven't found anybody who can do it? I'm not opposed to bringing in Joe Milton, and I mean that's a good point by Trey on the thumb or the hand or whatever, maybe having an impact on how he played last year, because he was not good after the Minnesota game. And of course, going into the season, there was all the hype about Joe Milton and all his ability and everything. This is it's kind of a Tennessee and Michigan football thing.
Yeah.
These programs that have been waiting for so long to do something, and like when there's a player, there's sometimes maybe the hype gets even a little more intense just because there's such desperation for for something to change for the better. But I don't know. I wouldn't say, based on what I saw of him, that it would be a great thing for Tennessee if he can come in and win the starting job.
Well, what it says to me is, like, there's going to be more quarterback movement. Like, there's no way that this room, when the season starts, is going to consist of Harrison Bailey, Brian Maurer, Hendon Hooker, Joe Milton, and Caden Salter. They're not having 5 quarterbacks in this room. So somebody's going to be on the move. Or, I mean, maybe not. Maybe you just got the best depth ever at quarterback.
Or 2 people.
Yeah.
I mean, and the thing is, I guess you wouldn't expect. Now, like, if I'm Hendon Hooker, I may not be too happy right now.
No.
That Joe Milton is coming in. But you got the freshman Caden Salter, who's obviously he's been in trouble, but you would assume he's got to look at it and say, you know what, take the redshirt year and get better and see what happens down the road. I think that's the realistic way to look at it.
Yeah.
Doesn't always happen that way. But I mean, Hooker and Milton are both new coming in for this opportunity, so I just wonder how Maurer and Bailey think about things right now.
Yeah. I think, like, Harrison Bailey is the first one that comes to mind. Like, what does he think right now about what's going on with the quarterback room? Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Chris in Nashville texts in, Harrison Bailey holds the ball too long in the pocket. I don't necessarily disagree with that. Like, I think there were some cases when he played last year, the limited time that he played, where he did hold on to the ball in the pocket. Now, I also don't think that that's just what he is, and you can't coach that out of him. Like, he's a freshman. Or was a freshman. So I think we see that all the time. I mean, think about it. You're a freshman. You're a high recruit. You're coming out of high school where nobody's even touching you. Like, nobody's breathing on you. You got all day to do whatever you want to do. It's a different game in the SEC. You learn that over time. So I don't think that just because there are flaws in Harrison Bailey's game, which there are, that it's just totally gone.
Right. Like how could they be unfixable at this point in your career?
Right.
I mean, that's very few people come right in and say, "Here we go, beep beep beep," all over the field, and you're making these fast reads. You're going to your third read. No, I mean it's usually a process. Now, this staff may have real issues with his upside,
and he's not their recruit. So
yeah,
that factors in as well. Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texter that says, if Milton starts at Tennessee, it shows how bad talent evaluators of his previous staff was. He's got a cannon, but no accuracy after the first read. He pulls it and runs.
I mean, that's what I saw too.
Yeah.
And, he can move well. He can make big plays. Yes, huge arm. But I guess I think of this offense as a quick delivery. This isn't like like a play action vertical throw offense, right?
Yeah.
It's a quick delivery, get the ball out, be accurate offense. My understanding of it, tempo. It doesn't mean you never throw deep or anything. You never go vertical, but
and I think
it's a high volume thing that I don't know that it really suits his skill set. But hey, they brought him in. They know more than we do.
Well, I think some Tennessee fans think under Heupel they're going to throw the ball 55 times a game.
No, they run.
They run the ball.
Sure. Yeah, it's balanced, but it's just the passing game itself. There's a lot of quick throws.
Yeah.
When you're running that fastball stuff, a lot of it is just okay.
Tired of the defense.
Hit that slant real quick again and again. Yeah. Then you hit them with the run play.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Brandon texted in from Columbia. I'm just glad that Jarrett Garantano's not playing anymore. He's just awful. Well, you can still watch him.
Just got it. So someone's just got to get a shot in on Garantano.
Got to. He's out there. Where's he at? Washington State?
Yes.
There you go. You can watch him
Wazoo.
play. He'll be out there. Washington State football, baby. You can watch him just sling the ball over the field. It's going to be awesome when he throws for 4,000 yards next year at Washington State. Can't wait for it. Going to be amazing.
If he does, then even more, I think, Jim Chaney would have to be one of the most, for me, raise my hand, overhyped, overvalued moves and one of the worst hires and just coordinator performances ever.
Yes. When we come back, we'll get back into the Nashville Predators. Chris Mason, Predators TV analyst, former Preds goaltender, will join us. That's coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Ah, yes, that time of the week here on Robby and Rexrode. Time to talk to our good friend, Predators TV analyst Chris Mason. Let's go to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Chris Mason, brought to you by Coleman Tractor, Tennessee's largest Kubota dealer, and Smoky Mountain Tops, the exclusive partner of the Nashville Predators. Visit SmokyMountainTops.com. C-Mace, what's going on, brother? How we doing?
We're doing great. Yeah, doing great. Just hanging out with the dogs outside and just enjoying the nice morning.
Predators continue to vibe. It was beautiful last night, C-Mace. 5-2 against the Blackhawks. What'd you think of that effort from the Predators last night?
I loved it. I really thought against Chicago the start was important. They've been getting down early in the hockey games, and they really came out, and I think they set the tone. In the first period, then they took a couple penalties, and that's what really changed the momentum. And I think anytime, if you're playing Chicago 5-on-5, they're a much better team. The Predators were dominant, and Chicago got, a few stretches. But if you give the Blackhawks, an opportunity on the power play, I think that's when they can kind of get back into the game and give you some problems. And they did that for a little bit. But I think, again, second period back and forth, Juice was good, Lankinen was good. I thought the goaltending was really good in that game. And then I loved the start of the third period. Chicago comes within one, and it's anyone's game in the third period. You come out and play a good game. Chicago can win a game and pull one out of Bridgestone, but they came out and Colton Sisson's line and just the way that they get in on the forecheck and that's their game. And you see it's bleeding into the other lines. They're starting to play like that. Matthew Shane was hitting. Eric Hall was out there hitting everything, and that goal in that first shift right away really set the tone for that period. And after that, Chicago didn't really stand much of a chance. So I thought it was a pretty dominating performance, in my opinion. And it just, I guess a nice way to come home from Carolina, make some adjustments, and beat a game that team that's still only 2 points behind you with a game at hand. So I thought that sent a pretty clear message that the Preds they're in it to win it here.
Well, you mentioned Duchesne, Chris. 2 games back. You could tell by his reaction last night. He could have used a goal. He got one. What do you think about how he's played in those 2 games?
You know what? And this is the one thing that, I know John Hines had talked to him before he come in the lineup. Probably every guy that gets in the lineup, obviously Matt Duchene's going to get in. He's a star player. He's very capable of really helping this team a ton if he gets his game going. And I think you saw earlier in the year, he had a ton of chances. He was snake bitten, and it started to become a thing. Started probably trying to wear on him a little bit. But I think right now, the one thing that John tells even all his star players is, look, he's like, just don't worry about the goals. Don't worry about, if you play the game the right way, I promise you the offense will come. And sometimes for offensive guys, that's hard to believe. You're like, oh, really? Yeah, I'm gonna go back out and be the third guy high, and that's gonna help me score goals. But you've seen the evidence of that. They've been watching. Matt missed 22 games. He's been seeing teams score more goals without some of their best players in the lineup. Why? Because they're playing the right way. And I really feel that it's easier now that they've established who they are as a hockey team. For you bring one guy back, they've seen that it's their recipe for success, and it is their recipe for creating more offense. And for him he's out there working right away. He's not what I would call an asset. Like I was a goalie nerd. He's a hockey nerd. Like, he just loves the game. He watches it. He knows all the equipment guys wear, and he just loves the game so much. So it's probably it's hard enough for anyone, but for him, probably hard enough, missing this game, and he just wants to get back so bad. So for him to get a goal like that, where he's standing right in front of the goalie, not beside the net, he's not waiting for a little tap in, he's in the hard area. He's out there laying the body. I saw that right off the bat. He laid about 2 or 3 hits in the first period. So he's in. He's bought in, and he's doing it. And it's a good thing. And for him to get rewarded, those goal scorers need a goal. They need that confidence, and there's nothing better than that puck going in the back of the net, no matter how it's done.
Preds TV analyst Chris Mason on with us here on Robby and Rexrode, brought to you by Coleman Tractor and by Smoky Mountain Tops. C-Mace, obviously another good game from Saros last night, and the Predators 6-0 against the Blackhawks. Saros has just been incredible the last few times that he's played them. From your vantage point, kind of going back to your playing days and looking what's happening right now with Saros, can a goaltender get in another team's head? Like, I think of Dylan Strome a couple of times. The last time that the Predators played the Blackhawks, he had like 7 grade A looks Didn't score on any of them. Had another couple of good looks last night and just can't buy one right now against UC Saros. Can a goaltender get in an entire team's head? And do you think Saros is doing that right now?
Oh, for sure. You do things that are out of character. You change your approach because you think just a normal shot won't be good enough. So you might try to hold on a little bit longer to get a better angle, or hope that he, goes down and it'll somehow open up the net, or you don't shoot in a good chance even if it's a good scoring area, because you've been conditioned to think, well, that's probably not going in, so maybe I need to pass this. Maybe I need to put this back door. And it definitely does. And it's only a split second of hesitation, and that's all it takes. And I've seen that. I've seen Saros do that within games against certain teams. By the end of the game, they're kind of changing their decision-making process when they get in good scoring areas. And that's because when you get a lot of good chances and they don't go in and they don't go in, you don't think it's good enough. That scoring chance isn't good enough. We're not going to score on that, so I have to try to create something better. And I definitely think he's done that with some of the Blackhawk players, Strome in particular that you mentioned. Yeah, he's probably that kid probably have 5 more goals if it wasn't for Saros this year. But he's definitely. I mean, he's playing at just an epic level. Like maybe we'll try to illustrate that statistically on the broadcast, but the level that he has kept his game at, and it's amazing. He's the hottest goaltender in the National Hockey League. He's the best goalie right now in the National Hockey League.
So, Chris, it's been a fun story to see Tanner Jeannot come in, get a couple goals. These are always fun stories. And, sometimes a guy he works and he gets an opportunity, taps one in, things like that. But I feel like we're seeing a really nice young player out there, maybe announcing himself. Is that an overreaction? I mean, what do you think about him so far, just overall?
I think he's been awesome. I think when you first come in, to the league and, you're trying to make an impression, he gets, we've called it the herd line. They've created an identity and they've got a big responsibility. John Hines starts these guys, at the start of hockey games. They started that third period, and that's a badge of honor for these guys, and it's a huge responsibility. And so a player like Tanner Jeannot is going to come in. He's like, you know what? I'm a physical guy. I'm going to show my physicality, and you still have the nerves. But once the nerves settle in and you get a couple games and you really think to yourself, you really believe to yourself, you know what? I can play at this level. There's a moment in time, I think, when a player has, and everyone goes through this, is before you get to the NHL, you're like, man, I think I can play, but you just don't know. And one game isn't going to cut it. But once you get a couple under your belt and you realize, hey, it's the same game, they're just a little bit better. They're, a little bit quicker, a little bit more responsible. All of the things are just a little bit better. But once you click, it starts to slow down for you a bit, and you start to, you start to use some of the skill set that he has that when he was lighting up the America League, and he starts to make plays and he starts to go to the net, and you're not so panicked out there. And he's one of these players. Every team wants the guys that have the physicality and the scoring ability that Tanner Jeannot has. They're just so valuable to teams because there's not a lot of guys like that anymore. The Jamie Benn types of players that are big and strong and skilled and can score. And I'm not saying necessarily he'll be in that category, but he does have a lot of that, same kind of attributes. And it's rare and it's valuable. And I think you're seeing that more and more. The league is getting more skilled, but it's getting less physical. So when you have those physical guys, you can make an impact. This Predators team, Tanner Jeannot and everyone else in the company, is the first team that I would say has had, in more often than not, when they go into the games, that they've got the physical advantage. And even against Dallas, they didn't back down from Dallas. And in these last recent years, I think that's been the difference in that series with Dallas, is they own the physical edge, and not anymore. And it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch a team go out and play with their heart, and everybody's working hard, and they're out there in the physical battles, and they're winning them, and they're intimidating teams now. That goal that Tanner Jeannot scored was a direct result. They get on the forecheck, Trennan's in there, assistant's in there, hitting, all of a sudden the defenseman gets back to the puck and he rims it around the boards. Ryan Ellis is sitting on the other side waiting for it. They're just forcing teams into turnovers and making mistakes, and it's just a beautiful thing. And that's playoff hockey. So that's the best part about it.
See, Mace, last thing for you here. I mean, last night it's a 3-goal game. Granlund still ends up with 23 minutes of ice time as a forward. And we've talked a lot about Saros, obviously, and Roman Josi and the run that he's been on. How much credit do you give Mikhail Granlund for this turnaround we've seen from this team and just kind of the stabilizing force he's been in all three zones for this group at forward?
Well, he's the guy that, what situation is it? Put him out there, right? That's the guy you always look, well, hopefully Granny's rested because we want him out there in every situation, whether it's offensive, defensive, whatever it is, penalty kill, power play, you want Mikhail Granlund on the ice. He's been the one guy, that I really pointed to early in the season where I didn't necessarily think that everybody was working every single night, collectively. I think we all knew that. It was pretty obvious that not everybody, brought that level of work to get, to the rink every day. And he's the type of guy that it's in his DNA. It's just who he is. He can't help it. It doesn't matter whether the team's playing bad or whether they're going through a tough stretch. He's going out there. He just can't help it. He's going out there and he's working as hard as he can. He's sacrificing. That's the kind of guy, that's the kind of character that I think, as a team, you should just embrace. That's the identity that they wanted. And I think now, finally, we're seeing more guys, obviously, in the last, few weeks here, month and a half here, really get on board. And it's been a huge part of their success. But you said it, over 23 minutes. I mean, as a forward, that's crazy. That's defensive minutes. But it really goes to show you the trust and the value that, that they have for Mikhail Granlund, because he's just a heart and soul player, that's for sure.
Preds TV analyst Chris Mason has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode, brought to you by Coleman Tractor, Tennessee's largest Kubota dealer, and Smoky Mountain Tops, the exclusive partner of the Nashville Predators. Visit SmokyMountainTops.com. See, Mace, appreciate you taking time to join us this morning, brother. Great stuff as always.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Absolutely. You as well. When we come back, we'll react a little bit to what C-Mace had to say there. Get back into the Preds' demolition of the Blackhawks last night as well. All that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game.
We're vibing, Robby. Vibing, 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 vibe, 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 vibe. We're vibing, Robby.
Ah, yes, the vibe continues last night for the Nashville Predators. 5-2 winners against the Chicago Blackhawks. They improved to 6-0-0 against Chicago this year. The second time in franchise history they've won at least 6 games against Chicago in a single season. The first time coming, I believe, in 05-06. So it's been a really good run for the Predators against the Blackhawks, and they're going to try to keep it going this week. Now, Joe, last night, the standings did change a little bit. The Predators, they built up a 4-point lead on the Blackhawks, but also Dallas gets a win in a shootout against the Red Wings. So Dallas jumps past Chicago. Now the Stars in 5th place in the Central Division. 3 points behind the Predators with 3 games in hand as well, and 3 games coming up later this week against the Red Wings. So if you're a Predators fan, hoping for a little help from the Red Wings in regulation at some point.
That would be a big help. It's also worth noting that Dallas's last 7 games are on the road. 9 of the last 12 are on the road. They still have 3 with Tampa Bay and 2 with Carolina.
Yep.
Now, the Preds also have 2 with Carolina to end the season at home, which could be big. But it does get tougher here for Dallas moving forward. So even if they clean up on the Wings this week, all is not lost.
And you still have a head-to-head with the Dallas Stars coming
one
up as
game
well.
Also here. So
you talk about a big game. That was going to be pretty big as we move forward here.
Hey, text line. Here's something I hadn't thought of. Any thought that Hines' style of play, big forecheck, blocking shots, very physical, has been a factor with the injury problems this year? That's from Frank.
I understand the question. I mean, you think back to Ryan Ellis's injury. He got hurt blocking a shot. So I think I don't know if that has to do with Hines' system rather than it is.
That's a hockey thing.
Getting in front of the puck and blocking the shot.
Is there any team that wins anything of consequence without guys blocking shots?
No.
Right.
Well, I think this year what I would put more of it on is probably just the schedule. I mean, I think you're seeing a lot of injuries around the league. You're playing every other day.
Basketball, too.
Yeah, I mean, you're playing every other day. You have been for 2.5, 3 months at this point. So I think I would probably blame the schedule the most for the injuries that we've seen. And sometimes just crazy stuff happens, and you go through a rash of injuries in a year. Like I think back a couple years ago, or maybe it was last year. I mean, Columbus, at one point in the season, they had like 14 guys out of the lineup. Like sometimes things just happen, and that's the way that the season shakes out for you. But I don't think there's a direct correlation in most cases from the style of play that you have and the system that you bring to the table and just getting hurt. Sometimes it's just fluky.
I might even go a step beyond that and go with the Derrick Henry philosophy, Frank, that if you're the aggressor and you're laying the hits and you're hemming a team in on the forecheck, you're more likely to hurt them than you, right? So yeah, I don't. But it's been a while since John Hines was blamed for something, so
it's true.
It's good to throw that in.
I'm just trying to go through the injuries in my head, like that we know what happened. Like Duchesne got cross-check in the back, so that has nothing to do with the way he's just in front of the net, got cross-check.
There's really very little style of play correlation at all with all the things that have happened to Arvidsson. It's just people trying to kill him,
trying to destroy him.
Yeah.
And he keeps on chugging along.
And his style of play is just he annoys the heck out of people.
Yeah.
So in any system, Victor Arvidsson is going to be a target.
Tanner Jeannot, another goal last night. What'd you think of that? And it's interesting. I put out my lineup last week when some of these healthy bodies start to come back in the lineup. I did not have Tanner Jeannot in that lineup. The more I watch that kid play, the harder I think it's going to be for me to take him out, be for John Hines to take him out. I mean, he was laying hits within the first 25 seconds of the game last night. Ends up scoring the goal as well. He's been really impressive so far.
Seamus just thought a Jamie Benn reference there?
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, listen, it's amazing that you can lose Olivier and then just, here you go. Because Olivier, I thought that line had something special going with Trent and Sissons, Olivier. Then you just throw in Jeannot, and I think he looks pretty good.
He does.
Like, I don't think I want to mess with that line. That line does something for me. So you could always You could always have like a more skilled fourth line because you have people coming back, but I'm not messing with that. That's an important part of this team.
I don't know what line you are messing with right now. Like, I mean, the second line with Granlund and Järnkrok and Cunnin. I mean, Järnkrok and Cunnin have a goal and assist last night, and Granlund has 2 assists, and they were just awesome. I mean, we talked about Granlund with C-Mace. He had 23 minutes. That's a lot of minutes for a forward. I mean, Connor McDavid played 27 last night, and that's just freakish. But 23 minutes for a forward, that's a ton of minutes.
That's a heavy night for defensemen.
I mean, it's pretty obvious that John Hines trusts him at forward more than he trusts anybody else. Like, he puts Granlund in every possible situation.
Right. I mean, he's a massive part of the penalty kill.
Yeah.
He's on the he's in everything. So, yeah, I don't know. Rocco Grimaldi.
Maybe.
I mean, it's just like it's a numbers game. There's some guys have to sit.
And he's on first line right now.
Right, but when Forsberg and Tolvanen come back, he's one, right?
Yeah. I would think so.
Who's the other?
Tanner Jeannot?
No way, man.
Cousins?
Not touching that line.
I don't know. It's a tough decision.
Yeah, maybe Cousins.
Maybe. Although, they love Nick Cousins.
Well, Cousins he gets people mad too.
Yes, he does.
With good reason.
I think Pete Weber refers to him as a hockey dermatologist, which I love. That's good. Getting under the skin.
Classic.
What'd you think of that? It's pretty good, huh?
That is pretty good.
And then, of course, last night, Preds picked a click. I mean, my goodness. Calle Järnkrok scores. Matt Duchene scores. Victor Arvidsson, the listener from yesterday, he rings one off the pipe. Granlund, the best player on the ice, 2 assists. I don't even remember a shot he had. I'm sure he had one. But he was just dishing it to everybody else last night.
Yeah, it's good almost point. It's not like, at least he didn't almost score a goal, like hit a post, or get some ridiculous save. So he was great.
He was awesome.
I mean, I feel like you should get some kind of, like half credit for that.
It's almost like a curse at this point. So now the competition, Porce got 3 in Preds Pick to Click.
You should have seen the look on Joe's face when he realized it was Duchene who scored that goal last night.
I mean, it looked like Hall at first.
Yeah, I couldn't tell.
Double deflection for Matt Duchene.
When Duchene was leading the line back through to fist pump the players, I had tapped Joe on the shoulder. I'm like, that was Duchene's goal, and he was like, oh my God.
So you're at 7. The listeners are at 7. Ryan Porce is at 3. I'm at 1. Like, I feel like Porce's lead on me is now insurmountable.
It's not though.
Going for you, Joe.
It kind of is.
And he's still hanging
the problem for him is, like, every time that he gets one, you get one too. So he's not really making up any ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anything's possible.
I was kind of hoping last night's Duchene goal got switched to Hala. I was mentally hoping
I'm
for
sure
that.
You were. If they get to the playoffs, then we're going to keep doing this. Is that right?
Yeah.
So,
why not?
I mean, if they go and make a run to the cup, who knows? I mean, you could win. You could
true.
win this thing going away by the time it's all said and done.
That is true.
Don't give up.
There's still time left on the table here. Let's go to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Jim from Nolansville, who wants to weigh in on the Preds. Jim, thanks for calling in to Robby and Rexrode.
Yeah, I called before the trade deadline defending Granlund that we should keep him, and I was down on Poyle for these contracts and such, but I think he's saved his job, and he did a good job of keeping firm and keeping Granny. And I still think maybe Johansson ought to be moved, but I haven't heard any of the station personnel, and including Mark, who I like. You guys haven't backed off I haven't heard anything about backing off of trading Granlund for the draft picks.
Well, I mean, I still think you could have gotten pretty good value out of Granlund. Like, to me, it comes down to, are you signing Granlund to an extension or are you not? Because if you go through this run here, you don't win a Stanley Cup, and you lose him, you're always going to look back and say, all right, well, what could you have gotten for Granlund? And I have no clue what the compensation was for Granlund, what David Poyle was offered. I think he made it pretty clear in his press conference comments and with his comments here with Darren Donica Chase last week that he was offered Granlund, and he was receiving phone calls from Matthias Ekholm as well. So I don't know exactly what the offers were. But to me, I mean, the story changes a little bit if you can keep Granlund in the fold and he can be a part of your team as you move forward. If it doesn't, I think you're always going to look back and say, all right, well, that was fun. It was a good run. What could you have gotten for Granlund had you decided to trade him at that point?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about that, Jim, a lot about it, and I think we're on the same page on that. It's interesting talking about this after last night's game, and you were just talking about how much he played. Like during that process, and of course GMs and coaches talk, I would love to have been a fly on the wall in the room when Poyle said, "So John, if we trade Granlund, what would our chances be of making the playoffs?"
Yeah.
Like, what do you suppose Hines would have said, or what would the expression have been on his face? I mean, it's pretty obvious he trusts him as much as he trusts any player on this team, like Yossi and Granlund.
He loves him. I mean, what's not to love right now? He's playing awesome. He's been great. So I imagine if John Hines had any say in the matter, it was, let's hold on to this guy. See if we can't keep him here long term. But there's still more of this puzzle to get figured out. Like, to the discussion we had earlier in the show about Duchesne, it's still very difficult for me to imagine you're keeping Johansson, Duchesne, and Granlund, unless Granlund just comes in a lot cheaper than I anticipate he's going to, which I guess is possible in this offseason, but it's difficult for me to imagine them making that work when you also factor in Forsberg's extension and Ekholm's extension. I mean, there's a lot of decisions that you've got to make coming up, but it's obvious he is the key cog at forward right now.
Yeah, and look, if they do end up retaining him, if they do end up re-signing him, he wants to be here, he thinks he fits here great, he loves Nashville, whatever it is, then I think it's a lot easier to digest that move a week ago.
Well, I think it justifies it. Yeah, I mean, if you're convinced you can get him to stay here and he ends up staying here, I have no problem with the move. I think if you look through the lens here, and remember, those top three teams, you still have struggled. Your record's not good against Carolina, Tampa Bay, and Florida. If you don't make a good run here in the playoffs and he's gone next year, what did you really get out of it? That's going to be the question you've got to ask moving forward. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion on the Nashville Predators. Get to some of your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode, live from the wholesaling studios, powered by RumbleOn.com. You're on ESPN 1025 The Game. Welcome back in. Final hour of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Charles Robinson joins us every week at 9 o'clock on Tuesdays. We're going to have to reschedule, push that off to maybe tomorrow to get Charles on the show. So
maybe some breaking news going on.
So looking forward to that and looking forward to the conversation with Charles whenever he can work it out and we can get him on. So make sure you stay tuned for that. We'll keep you updated on when that's going to take place. Right now, talking all things Nashville Predators. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Joe, Matt Duchene last night finds his way onto the score sheet. He gets a goal, the first goal of the game for the Predators, and this is his second game back from injury after missing 22 games because of a lower body injury. And look, he's got 9 points in 25 games, the fourth goal of the season last night for Matt Duchene. He's getting paid $8 million a year. So, obviously, I mean, when we start talking about the future of the Predators and some of the players under big contracts that have a lot of pressure on them as they close out this season, as they head into the offseason, Duchene's name, if it's not at the top of the list, it is near the top of the list. When you talk about Duchene and Johansson and some of the decisions that David Poile and the Predators could have to make with the expansion draft coming up, you could tell when Duchene scored last night, there was a lot of relief in that goal. He celebrated and was very adamant in his celebration. He got to the front of the net, gets a redirection, kind of a double redirection from a shot from Matt Benning, from Eric Halla, back over to Duchene and in the back of the net. Do you think a goal like that, do you think the way the team is playing maybe can be a springboard for Duchene as they move forward here? We talked about, the way he's got to play to be successful and how gifted he's been in his career at times in front of the net. Do you think this goal last night, when you factor in the way the team has been playing as a whole as of late, maybe gets him going a little bit here offensively?
Well, I think like Sime said earlier, it's definitely an example of getting to where you want him to get, yep, and that paying off for him. So, but I think he's come in and been really dedicated to doing that in 2 games. I think he's been active out there and has created some opportunities. So, I think it's a good thing for this team to have him back in the lineup. I mean, this team still needs more offensive threats, to me, over the long haul or against the top teams. If you're going to try to beat some of them, you want to get in the playoffs, you want to try to make a run at one of those teams, you've got to have your offensive threats available. It's kind of like like the Blackhawks. Yeah, I agree with Seamus. I mean, the Preds were a much better team 5-on-5. The Blackhawks are lethal on the power play. And that's been like a top 5-ish power play all year, right?
Yep.
I mean, to me, like if you get into a playoff series, that's where the Preds, if you get Forsberg, Tolvanen back, that's where the Preds would be able to maybe compensate, is by getting that going again. So that's not necessarily the Duchene discussion, but the point being, you need these offensive scores, back in your lineup, and it's a good thing to have him back. And that isn't necessarily, I don't know what he can do here other than just go nuts to change that bigger narrative you're talking about. But you also, if you're a Preds fan, you don't want to see Matt Duchene go off to Seattle and all of a sudden have like 5 straight, 70-point seasons here, and all of a sudden, wonder what happened.
Well, it's just interesting because, like Saturday, when it was announced he was coming off the injured reserve and he was coming back in the lineup against Carolina, I mean, the reaction on Twitter was really interesting to me. Like, it wasn't a, total just panic that he was coming back in. But there was a whole lot of, okay, it's Matt Duchene coming back in lineup. Like normally, under normal circumstances, if your team's been playing as well as the Predators have, you get a star player coming back, a guy that's been productive in his career offensively, the fans would be like, okay, this team's rolling along great. You can get more firepower coming back in here with Matt Duchene. I think there's a lot of the Preds fan base that, number one, they wanted to see the youth movement anyway, and now by default, they've had to see it based on the way the injuries have happened. The young guys have come in and have played really well. And I do think there are a lot of Preds fans that were wondering, and maybe are still wondering, all right, as you start to get some of these guys back, these veteran guys, like Matt Duchene, do the ingredients that have made this group successful as of late, do those change at all with Duchene coming back in there? I think it's a fair question. I would hope if you're Duchene or Cunnin or, to a lesser extent, Forsberg coming back in, he's been a part of this, so I don't really include him in this discussion. But if you're a veteran guy coming back in, I mean, you know what's been going on. You've seen the way that they've played, what's been asked of the system, and how you are asked to go out there and play every night. Like, if you're not playing that way, to me, you kind of like stick out like a sore thumb with the rest of the group, and you got to answer to your teammates at that point. So I really didn't worry about that with Duchene. Like, I felt like it was pretty likely that when he came back in, you're going to see him play with his hair on fire. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to come in and, light it up offensively, but I don't like – I never really bought into the hey, I'm worried about Duchene just coming out there and just loafing it. Like, I never thought that was going to happen.
I didn't either, and I don't think that he was before. I think this team just collectively had not figured a lot of stuff out. Like, I don't look at Duchene as like the issue from before.
Sure.
Do you?
No.
I
understand the frustration.
Right. Well, but Duchene is being paid to do more than play with effort. He's being paid to be the guy at the top, the guy who's scoring every night. So so I understand the apprehension of like, oh, this chemistry is perfect right now. You sure you want to mess it up? But yeah, you still need in this lineup more threats. He's going to play. I mean, and look, I think last night was probably good because obviously his first game back, they lose. So there you go. Now more people can say, oh, and here they go. Now, the first period of that game, I don't care who you had on the ice. That was as dominant a hockey period as I've seen in a while. From the Canes, the Preds I thought were better in the second and third, and then they were really good last night. So maybe last night kind of quiets a little bit. Like, they're going to keep playing this way, and Matt Duchene's not going to come in and like spoil the whole apple cart.
Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texter that says, do you think the Preds trade Calle Jarnkrok after this year? I'm going to go ahead and say no.
Impossible.
There's no way they could trade Joe Davion Rexrode.
That's
right. What
right.
if you lost Clowney and Jarnkrok in like a 6-month stretch?
And they couldn't be together because there's no
team in
Cleveland. So, yeah, no. Calle Jarnkrok is I
mean, he's been an integral part of the team this year.
Doesn't
he's
he?
Leading the team
he's
in
leading
goals.
the team in goals.
Got 12 goals.
Yeah. You're not going to mess with Jarnkrok. No, Jarnkrok.
I mean, the contract is just so friendly.
Yeah, it's just, yeah. I mean, he's still at $2 million a year, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible.
Jarnkrok will be back.
Yeah, he'll be back. I don't think you've got to worry about that. Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texter, Trevor, comes in and asked, could we possibly see Philip Tomasino make his NHL debut during this series with Chicago? What are your thoughts? Now, they did call him up to the taxi squad last week. We talked about maybe that being an option for the Predators against Carolina. I'd be surprised if the lineup changes. Like, if everybody stays healthy, I think you're probably just leaving this thing the way it is. Right now.
I don't know why you're doing that right now. I mean, you just scored 5 goals on Chicago. Everything you're doing is working. 5-on-5, you're dominating. And we've already talked about the difficulty of the lineup once you get Forsberg and Tolvanen back. So you're going to put in Tomasino for one of those guys right now? I don't see why. I know it'd be exciting for fans to be able to see him, and maybe at some point he's in there out of necessity, but I wouldn't force that right now.
And maybe we'll get an update sometime this week on some of the injured guys with Forsberg and Tolvanen. Maybe that happens at some point. I tried yesterday. It didn't work.
No dice.
No dice yesterday.
Are we getting Hines this week?
I think so. Coming up on Thursday, yeah.
Well, there may be an update before then anyway.
Maybe we'll just get to the bottom of all of it on Thursday with John Hines.
Just give us an exact date, John, right now.
We'll continue the discussion on the Nashville Predators, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. And speaking of the text line, 1025 The Game and T-Mobile have teamed up to give away a hockey home gating party, and it's time to text the word RINK to 615-737-1025. That's RINK to 615-737-1025. Now to enter for a chance to win a Dos Equis prize pack, which includes a case of beer, dessert from Nothing But Cakes, a T-Mobile prize pack, and food provided by 312 Pizza Company in Germantown. You must be 21 or older to enter, so make sure you get those texts in right now to 615-737-1025. We'll be right back. Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Don't miss Nashville's best NFL draft coverage on Thursday, April 29th and Friday, April 30th on 102.5 The Game, presented by Founders Brewery, Apple Collision Centers, Freedom Tire Guys, and MTGRT.com, your live and local mortgage expert. Be sure to join us on site as 102.5 The Game will be broadcasting live on Thursday, April 29th from 3rd and Home, Germantown's Bar with a ballpark, and on Friday, April 30th from Boom Boss, Craft Pizza, and Tap House in East Nashville. Just a little bit more than a week away from the NFL Draft, so make sure you're joining us for that. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Talking all things Nashville Predators right now, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. John from Clarksville on the text line says, when it comes to the eye test, Duchesne is a much harder skater than Johansson. Joey half the time on the ice looks like he's putting in no effort, just standing around reaching for pucks and missing. Duchesne skates his butt off every shift. I know the stats say that Joey off the ice hurts the team, but his effort looks sloppy on most nights. What do you think of that John has thrown out there about Johansson and maybe the effort sometimes not looking like it's there?
Might be a little overstated there. I wouldn't say that it's always like a hair-on-fire desperation effort, but I think he's been playing pretty well.
I think he's played well as of late. Look, I think there are a couple things that work against Johansson in this discussion. Now, do I think he's always playing at his top gear? No. Do I think he's just out there dogging it all the time? No. Like, I think you got some guys that just chop it up, and they're pushing and skating, like Rocco Grimaldi and Victor Arvidsson. They're moving and chopping it up and going at full speed all the time. Johansson, a lot of times, even when he's on, he's just kind of gliding.
Yeah, he's a
glider. Slowed the game down, and he's looking of where to go with the puck. So I think it comes off sometimes like he's just not skating hard doing that. He's just kind of reading on where he wants to go with the puck. And, I mean, let's be honest, the other part of this is he's about as goofy as it gets, and I think that personality, can rub fans the wrong way when you're not producing. Like, everybody loves it. When the vibe and stuff's going on, people love it. And when you're scoring and producing, you're the fun guy in the locker room, and everybody loves Ryan Johansson. But when you're not, people maybe, and I've seen this happen on Twitter all the time, they talk about how he doesn't care and he's just out there screwing around. He's not invested in the team, which I just don't buy that. Like, no. I think Ryan Johansson has been very invested in the team. Now, has the production the last year and a half been where you need it to be? No, it has not. And that's got to change moving forward with both him and Duchesne. And if it doesn't, you've got a real problem down the middle if you're the Predators. But I think this narrative that Johansson just doesn't put in effort, I think sometimes is a little overstated.
Well, it's like Yossi's too nice and his hair's too perfect, so he can't be a good captain.
Right.
No one cares more than that guy. Everybody follows him. Everybody respects him. He's not a dude throwing people against the lockers. So Johansson, of course, obviously, we look at things differently. We like people who are colorful and say interesting things and don't act like robots when you talk to him, and that's Johansson, so he's a media favorite.
Yes.
But I've never thought like his care level was not there. It's just he couldn't figure out his game last year. It was
he talked about
majorly frustrating year.
He spent like the entire break just like watching film of himself last year, trying to figure out what was going on.
Then he went to the bubble and was
amazing.
Dominant, and it's like, okay,
now,
so it's there.
And that's the part of this discussion that I understand.
Yes.
And that's what I've tried to figure out as well. Okay, we've seen it in the playoffs. I mean, the dude was the best player for the Predators in the playoffs outside of Pekka in that run to the final in 2017. He was great again the next year in the playoffs. Like, we've seen him do it at a pretty high level when the games matter the most. And I get it. It's an 82-game season most years. You're not going to have your A game every night. You're just not. It's impossible to do in this league. You do need to have it more often, and you need to be able to put up more points. I've always said that I would like him to be more aggressive in terms of his shot. I think he's got a great shot. He doesn't use it enough. He's a great playmaker, and he has been for a long time. I understand the frustration with you see one level of Ryan Johansson in the playoffs. Why don't you see that more often in the regular season? I don't think that comes down to just strictly effort, though.
No. The effort thing. The effort thing is
in sports is way overblown.
Yeah. But you have to be at a certain level of effort, and it's at a level of effort that most people couldn't reach anyway. But then there is that other level of effort that I think this team collectively has been at for a while now, and that's harder to attain. But yeah, the Johansson stuff, it just comes down to, I think for he and Duchesne both, I don't think there's any lack of care or trying or wanting to perform or I got paid so whatever. I don't think there's any truth to any of that. But there is truth to here's your number, so here's what your numbers need to be.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. JD text in, says playoff Joey needs to come back soon. That would be nice if they could get point per game Ryan Johansson back. Look, I think he's been better lately. Now, has that always translated to points? No, but I think I thought he was really good last night.
I did too. He almost made a couple ridiculous plays last night.
Yeah, I mean, now he did have a puck in the slot where he kind of danced through the middle and tried a drop back pass. I would have loved to have seen him shoot the puck, and that happens a couple times a game. And at this point, that is what he is. He's looking for the pass, and I get it. He's very good at passing the puck. So I understand the frustration there. But I think Johansson in the last 10, 15 games has been very similar to the rest of the team, and that's been their level has come up, and they played differently and played better.
So there were a few shifts with, or at least a couple, where Johansson and Duchesne ended up, together in between changes. Man, I was intrigued by that look. And there were actually a couple times where Johansson was looking for Duchesne,
yep,
and they almost connected. I'd be really intrigued to see that a little bit. Johansson, Duchesne, and Arvidsson?
I guess. We had somebody on the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com ask, would you just swap Grimaldi and Duchesne? Like, do you put Duchesne in Grimaldi's spot right now, move Grimaldi down to the third line with Eric Hall and Nick Cousins, and just kind of roll with that and see what Duchesne looks like on the wing with Ryan Johansson? Like, I don't think they're going to do that right now.
Because it worked fine
Because it keeps working. So I think they're probably just going to leave the lineup alone on Wednesday. But, like, long-term, the rest of this year, could you move Duchesne to the wing somewhere? Like, I don't anticipate when Forsberg is healthy. Like, I don't think Jofa is coming back. Like, I don't think it's going to be a thing. So I don't think Forsberg, Johansson, and Arvidsson are playing together.
So it'll be Granlund, Forsberg, and
so you don't think Forsberg just slides on in where Grimaldi is right now? Let's say he's the next guy to come back.
I mean, if he does, I don't think Arvidsson stays there. Like, I think they've tried that line enough under Hines to where I don't know if they're going back to it.
I still am intrigued by it because sometimes, again, it was just a year ago.
Now, maybe it is just you think, okay, the whole team's different. Let's see what they're like now playing together, but I'd be surprised.
So then I don't hate the idea of Duchesne up there. I think it'd be interesting. So then you're talking about Granlund, Forsberg, Tolvanen?
Sign me up for that.
Happens?
What a line.
And Johansson, Arvidsson, Duchesne.
Yeah. It's pretty intriguing.
It is. It's a very different from what it looks like now.
Yeah. Well, you got to put him somewhere. Like, you're not putting Forsberg or Tolvanen on the third line.
I'm not touching the fourth line.
No.
So that leaves your third line looking like what? Looking like
I guess you're taking out
Yarncroke,
Cousins and Grimaldi.
So you got Yarncroke, Cousins, Holla?
Be Yarncroke.
Oh, Cunning's in there somewhere.
I'm sorry. Somewhere too. Yarncroke, Cunnin,
Holla.
Yeah.
Holla at your boy.
Sorry, Cousins. Someone's got to go.
It's a good problem to have. I don't know if Tanner Jeannot is going to make it, but I'm with you. I don't know how you changed up that fourth line right now.
Don't touch it. Right? Come on. I'm not kidding.
I'm not necessarily disagreeing.
Whatever.
There's only a certain amount of spots.
You got that. They're obliterating people.
Like, immediately. I mean, they're starting games. Like, John Hines is just rolling them out there, saying, all right, here you go. You start. Set the tone. We'll keep going after that. Literally last night in the first 30 seconds, Trenton took like 2 runs at people, and Jeannot knocked the crap out of somebody on the first shift of the game. And you're like, okay, here they go. That forecheck's already started.
Right.
And the Predators were just rolling for 10 minutes.
And they score, too.
And then they scored on said forecheck and tenacity to start the third period.
Yeah. So look, I get it. I don't know how you take them out of the lineup either. I just know, like, Forsberg and Tolvanen are going to play when you bring them back in. So who comes out?
Yeah, sorry, Cousins.
I mean, they love him too.
Yeah.
But I get it. I mean, that would probably be the way I would,
See, this
do.
is why you should have traded somebody. All you got to do is trade some people.
13 forwards, 5 defensemen.
There you go.
Yeah, 13 forwards. That'd be great. See if you can pull that one off. John from Kentucky texts in on the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Says, listening on Twitter, is the ultimate goal to have Duchesne play with Tolvanen and Forsberg. So what do you think, putting him back in the middle and saying, all right, here on your left is Forsberg, here on your right is Tolvanen? Have at it.
Like I said this earlier in the show, I had Brennan, my 13-year-old son, with me, and so we were, you're trying to hey, watch this guy. Don't just watch the puck, what. And I was pointing out Granlund a lot, watch what Granlund's doing here in the defensive zone. I'm not touching Granlund right now.
No, he's got to be in the middle.
He does everything for this team.
23 minutes last night in every situation. I mean, look, these are good problems to have if you're John Hines. But these are very tough decisions. And what you got to have in your back of your mind the whole time is, all right, if I make the wrong decision, is that going to totally derail everything that we've done up until this point and just mess with the mojo? This is a tough balance.
You can always change things back, though.
You can.
And again, I think the biggest question was Duchesne.
Agreed.
So I feel like he's come right in and he's playing how they want him to play. So I don't think that's obviously you want the lines to be constructed well. Sometimes it doesn't work, but you can always switch it around if need be.
When we come back, we will switch gears and get back into the NFL draft. Trevor Lawrence made some headlines over the weekend about some tweets that he had with his love for the game of football. Do we blow that way out of proportion here when it comes to NFL draft and NFL draft prospects? We'll talk about that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Pro Golf is coming to Nashville this May with the Simmons Bank Open. Text the keyword golf now to 615-737-1025. That's golf to 615-737-1025 for a chance to win a weekend pass for 4 to enjoy the event in style, including food and drinks, plus a Predators gift pack, including a polo shirt, golf balls, and umbrella. Text golf to 615-737-1025 and enter to win. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Tuesday morning and streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. Joe, an interesting story over the last few days coming out with Trevor Lawrence and a lot of people questioning, I guess, his commitment to the game of football. Now, this all originated from an interview that he did with Sports Illustrated, obviously leading up to the NFL draft. And the quote that grabbed people's attention in this piece was, quote, "It's hard to explain that because I want people to know that I'm passionate about what I do and it's really important to me. But I don't have this huge chip on my shoulder that everyone's out to get me and I'm trying to prove everybody wrong. I just don't have that. I can't manufacture that. I don't want to. There's also more in life than playing football." So what do you think of that when Trevor talks about that? It says, I think the mistake people make for being a competitor, that it's unhealthy to a certain extent. You just always think that you've got to prove somebody wrong and you've got to do more and you've got to be better. And Trevor Lawrence doesn't really buy into that. That got people going quite the storm on social media about his commitment to the game of football.
Yeah, first of all, I would encourage everyone to read the piece by my buddy Michael Rosenberg, who went out and spent time with Trevor and his wife. Read the whole piece. And, honestly, reading it, I didn't even think it would be something. I mean, even in the piece, it sort of says people are going to react to this. And I was like, not if they actually read the whole story.
But people don't do that.
No. So there's a few reactions. First of all, my reaction to what he said is good for him. It's great to see someone with a little bit of perspective on life. I mean, how the heck could he play with a chip on his shoulder? That's so fake.
The number one pick.
Right.
You've been incredibly successful in high school and in college. What chip do you have? You want to be great. It's good. And you want to, do the best you can and be a great player in the NFL. That's all great. But that's not the same as everybody talks about Brady.
Right.
He's
well,
still
he had
mad.
a reason.
Yeah.
Right.
6th round pick.
Right. He had that reason back then. And yes, now it's come on, Tom. You over that yet?
He still talks about that. I don't believe him.
Relax. But still, there's a guy who had a reason to have a chip on his shoulder. Trevor Lawrence he's great. Everybody knows he's great. He's gonna be the number one pick. Oh. There was an anonymous scout who said he wasn't sure and thought I might be number 2 overall. Yeah.
Man.
That it drive me. It's such a overused thing in sports. And I think a lot of athletes do use it.
Yeah.
They find any kind of slight thing. Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Oh, he didn't look at me in the restaurant, so I'm gonna, dunk on his head. Athletes try to find this stuff. That's fine. But the fact that Trevor Lawrence just has perspective. To me, there's nothing to be outraged about unless you're just way too into the meathead cliches here. It's the dude's going to be a good player. We'll see if he's great or not. I don't think if he's not great, it's because he's going to come and say, you know what, I'm going to go surfing, guys.
Exactly. Well, this caused a response from Trevor Lawrence on Twitter. He saw the reaction that quote generated, and here's what Trevor Lawrence had to say on Twitter. Quote, "It seems as if people are misreading my sentiment. I'm internally motivated. I love football as much or more than anyone. It's a huge priority in my life, obviously. I'm driven to be the best I can be and to maximize my potential and to win. I've got a lot of confidence in my work ethic. I love to grind and chase my goals. You can ask anyone who's been in my life. That being said, I'm secure in who I am and what I believe. I don't need football to make me feel worthy as a person. I purely love the game and everything that comes with it, the work, the team, the ups and downs. And I'm a firm believer in the fact that there is a plan for my life, and I'm called to be the best I can be at whatever I'm doing. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk."
Well, and in the piece, there's a lot in it about his love for football, going back to his – and there's a point where he tells his high school coach, I want to be the best who's ever done it. So, just because he isn't this obsessive, I am going to – I'm going to find every little thing that I can find to to get an edge, I think that's a good thing. It's good to see someone like this with perspective. Now, Louis Riddick had some interesting thoughts on this, and I agree with Louis Riddick that there would be more reaction if Justin Fields said this stuff.
Yes.
I do. I think some people would react differently. I don't think I would. I don't think a lot of us would, but I think some people would. And obviously we've already seen the stuff with Fields and, questioning
work
his
ethic and all that.
dedication and, it just gets into some real old stereotypes and things like that should be gone. But, I agree that there's a double standard in reaction. But, frankly, I don't get outrage over this. I don't understand it.
Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Nate texted in, Trevor Lawrence doesn't have anything to prove to anyone. He's been at the top since high school, so what does he have to prove? Also, I took his comments as he doesn't have to play football to be successful. If NFL doesn't work, he's got a degree to fall back on. I think there's some of that. Look, I think Trevor Lawrence wants to be successful. I think he wants to be a great player in the NFL. I think he wants to play football for the next 15, 16 years. But I also think Trevor Lawrence, just based on what I've read about him, what I know about him, he is interested in other things, and he lives a certain way, and I think that he realizes, to Nate's point there, that if it doesn't work out in football, he's not just like some failure in life. Like, he's going to move on and do other things. So, football can be important. Like, our jobs are important to us. My job is not everything to me. Like, you have to have a proper balance in your life, and quite frankly, like, I know there are some people that are in the NFL where they're like, it's all football all the time. That's all I care about. That's all I do. And that's fine. Maybe that works for some people. To me, I'm more of a guy that thinks there's got to be some balance somewhere along the line, or you're just going to burn yourself out.
Right. I mean, I guess you could say, someone could look at this and say, does he love ball? Because that's the phrase right here, love ball.
Yeah.
I think he does. I think he just has perspective. I mean, this does remind me a little bit of a guy covered who I will point to a lot of times when I think of, like, people that have just impressed me beyond the sport, and that's Kirk Cousins.
Yep.
A guy who I think has done a lot of – he's a film nut. He does everything he can do because he's not athletically as gifted as a lot of these guys. He's really not. He's not physically talented enough to be doing what he's doing. He's gotten more out of himself, but he also has tremendous life balance and perspective on life, and I think that helps him. I think that's helped him be the best he can be. So, but we know if Trevor Lawrence doesn't have the Hall of Fame career, someone will point back to this article. They'll go back to it. You know it's going to happen.
Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Shane from Ashland City texted in, I respect the guy even more now, a family man and a ball player and a much better overall person. You can't knock a guy for having a good moral compass.
I agree.
And then he gets to take his moral compass to Jacksonville to align himself with Urban Meyer.
With the ultimate moral compass, Urban Meyer. Maybe he can help Urban be better. Convince Urban to pay for subscription services.
So let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. CC text in, much ado about nothing. Sounds like a young man who's got his priorities in order. We all should after the year that we just experienced. It's a good point.
That's a good point, too. I like all this perspective. I need to...
See,
I'm used to letting you just go text on, but I can do it
thoughts on
now.
the text line.
There are deep thoughts.
Yeah, I like it. And
and Chris in Nashville with a thumbs up on the Pixies. Yes, Chris, I'm with you, brother.
Yes.
And you, Ryan. Nice job playing Pixies last bump.
Thank you. It's about time you complimented.
Is that the first compliment that Rexrode has ever given you?
No, come on.
Now, in terms of the bump music, not in life.
I think you've played Pixies before. And actually, you played Hall & Oates one time that I really liked, too.
Was that Debaser that we just played?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Played Hall & Oates earlier in the show. But see, when I play music he likes, he just goes on with his morning. But when I play something he doesn't like, it's, what are you doing?
Yeah.
It's kind of like...
It's a character flaw.
Like I should be
Probably
more,
needs to pay
more like
attention.
Trevor Lawrence and be focused on the positive and not the negative and the chip on my shoulder.
There you go.
Yeah.
You're right.
You should be more
I'm
positive.
sorry. Show me the way, Trevor.
When we come back, we'll continue to get your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Also, got a pair of tickets for Nashville SC to give away as well, coming up with their game against Montreal on Saturday. All that coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game.
This hour of Robby and Rexrode is brought to you by Train. Get a great deal this spring on a new Train heating and cooling system. At Train, they test so it runs. Visit traininfo.com to find your local dealer and learn more. It's hard to stop a train.